grant a permanent soil nail easement for Little Albany Street in the city of New Brunswick. Ordinances on first reading. We have ordinance 031401, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the city of New Brunswick, chapter 10, vehicles and traffic, schedule 39, parking zone for handicapped persons. We are deleting one handicapped parking zone, 59 bike place, and we are adding two handicapped parking zones, 53 bike place and 101 bike place. Ordinance 031402 is an ordinance to amend the management salary ordinance 2012-2014. We're going into resolutions. Resolution 401 is a resolution to approve agenda amendments. Resolution 402, approve payroll 2514 to 22814. Resolution 403, authorize refund for redeemed tax sales certificates. Resolution 404, approve amendment of resolution 021409. The reason is to pay legal fees in the amount of $824.50 to Martin Kane and Cooper for Police Detective Kenneth Aboy in the matter of Hernandez, Lopez Nieves, Granados Joya versus the city of New Brunswick, from $5,966 to $6,790.50. Resolution 405, approve amendment of resolution 121-304. The reason is to pay additional legal fees in the amount of $212.50 to Mitzner and Mitzner for police officer Bradford Dell in the matter of Deloach versus police officer Bradford Dell, from $13,994 to $14,206.50. Resolution 406, approve amendment of resolution 121-305. The reason is to pay additional legal fees in the amount of $153 to Mitzner for police officer Andrew Wise in the matter of Rodriguez versus police officer Andrew Wise, from $3,064 to $3,217. Resolution 407, approve amendment of resolution 021414. The reason is to pay additional legal fees in the amount of $153 to Benedict and Altman for Police Director Anthony Caputo in the matter of Frank Carroll III versus the city of New Brunswick, from $399.50 to $552.50. Resolution 408, approve amendment of resolution 091214. The reason is to pay legal fees in the amount of $374 to Benedict and Altman for Police Director Anthony Caputo in the matter of Victor Rodriguez versus the city of New Brunswick, from $731 to $1,105. Resolution 49, authorized purchase by Police Department on the state contract 8-81336, Police and Homeland Security equipment and supplies. This is from East Coast Emergency Lighting for emergency lighting and equipment, not to exceed $4,529.79. Resolution 410, authorized purchase by Police Department on the state contract 8-75583, WSCA computer contract from Quality Communication System, who is an authorized dealer for Panasonic Industrial Company for 40 actuator transmitter kits for in-car video, not to exceed $10,395.20. Resolution 411, authorized service by police on the state contract 8-83904 from Quality Communication System for removal and installation of one 10-foot radio from a forest state to Jeep Patriot, not to exceed $380. Resolution 412, authorized purchase by Police Department on the state contract 8-81327, Police and Homeland Security equipment and supplies from East Coast Emergency Lighting, who is an authorized dealer for ProGuard, for one ProGuard push bumper, not to exceed $195. Resolution 413, authorized advertisement and receive a bid to furnish and deliver one fire pumper for the Department of Fire. Resolution 414, authorized tax collector to transfer several overpayment on tax and utility accounts. Resolution 415, approve request for use of city property requested by the New Brunswick Board of Education, Livingston School. The location is the fields adjacent to the teen center for Livingston School Field Day. The date is Wednesday, June 18, 2014, from 9 a.m. to 2:30, with a rain date of Friday, June 20th, 2014. Resolution 416, approve request for street closing requested by Take Back the Night, Rutgers University, for the annual march and rally to protest assaults and violence against women and genderized violence. The location is George Street, Somerset Street, and College Avenue on Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014, from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Resolution 417, approve request for use of city property requested by Globe Med at Rutgers University. The location is Buffalo Park and Pavilion for a 5K run walk on Saturday, April 26, 2014, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Resolution 418, approve award of grant for rehabilitation home improvement. One grant for Kendra Brown, 178 Hale Street, not to exceed $29,350. Resolution 419, authorize refunds to U.S. Bank as custodian for Talbot DBW in the amount of $2,190.53 against utilities of 45 Quentin Avenue. Resolution 420, authorize refunds to SB Muni custodians Perot LPNG in the amount of $6,025.36 against taxes on 19 Union Street. Resolution 421, authorize release of performance guarantee bond number 105-841-694 to Matrix Development Group for Matrix Upper Lot Garage, and the amount is $182,063. Resolution 422, approve renewal of contract with National Vision Administrators for Vision Plan for City Employees. The term is January 1st, 2014, retroactive to December 31st, 2014, not to exceed $49,000. Resolution 423, approve amendment of Resolution 021330, max surplus, prescription plan services, not to exceed $2,991,020.66. Resolution 424, approve emergency temporary appropriations for 2014. Resolution 425, approve transfer of appropriations reserved for 2013 municipal budget. Resolution 426, approve request for street closing and use of city property requested by James T. Harrell Memorial Foundation. The location is Joyce Kimmer Avenue at 9th Street to 7th Street to Joyce Kimmer Avenue to Memorial Park. Park location is Memorial Stadium for the 10th annual 5K Run Walk to benefit the James D. Harrell Memorial Foundation on Saturday, August 30th, 2014, and Sunday, August 31st, 2014. The Saturday hours are from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Street closure Sunday from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Resolution 427, authorize appointment of Brunswick Parking Authority parking enforcement officers. Resolution 428, approve request for solicitation of funds requested by Rutgers Colleges Against Cancer. This is for the American Cancer Society. The dates are March 29th, March 30th, April 5th, and April 12th, 2014, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The locations are Easton Avenue and Somerset Street, Easton Avenue and Hamilton, George Street and Maple Avenue, George Street and Church, and George Street and Albany Street. Resolution 429, approve amendment of Resolution 111-26, change order number 2 with TNS Builders, LLC, for the extension and completion time. There is no change in the contract amount. Approval of this change order will not constitute an increase of 20% or more of the amount of the original contract. We also have, and I have one more resolution because I just realized that I was reading the updated one. We have Resolution 430, which is a resolution to approve on-premise raffle. It's a 50-50 at 1 W. Johnson Place. It's for the Community Food Bank of New Jersey with the date of March 23rd of 2014. Resolution 431, approve on-premise raffle merchandise at 1 W. Johnson Place for the Community Food Bank of New Jersey. The date is March 23rd, 2014. And Resolution 432, authorize reinstatement of contracts with subcontractors on fire museum project. Resolution 433, approve authorization to advertise for George Street and Commercial Avenue traffic signal relocation. This is only a matter for an item for discussion by the council, which is the possible amendment to snow removal ordinance. Other than that completes the agenda.
Yes, next time, something look at it, we want to make it.
At this time, the meeting is called to order. With the clerk.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Council Vice President Egan.
Here.
Councilmember Fleming.
Here.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Present.
Council President Escobar.
Here. Please be advised that the notice requirements of the Public Meeting Act has been complied with and satisfied in that the annual notice contains sufficient notice of the time and place and conduct of all public meetings of the Municipal Council of the City of New Brunswick has been filed, they'll have it already, has been filed with the city clerk, has been placed on an appropriate bulletin board in the lobby of City Hall in Brunswick, New Jersey, and has been transmitted to the official newspaper for the City of New Brunswick, namely the Home News Tribune. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, please let's pause for a moment to honor those Americans and Afghans who have lost their lives in the war in Afghanistan. Thank you. At this time, we have a legislative motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
January 3rd.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. We have an ordinance on second reading, ordinance 021-401, an ordinance to grant a permanent soil nail easement for Little Albany Street in the city of New Brunswick. Does any member of the public has a question or any comment regarding this specific ordinance?
Move the ordinance?
Second. Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. We have two ordinances on first reading, I apologize. First one is ordinance 021-401. It's an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the city of New Brunswick, chapter 10, vehicles and traffic, schedule 39, parking zones for handicapped persons. We are deleting one handicapped parking zone, 59 right place, and we are adding two handicapped parking zones, 53 right place and 101 right.
Move the ordinance setting down March 19th for public hearing, same date to be advertised.
Second?
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. Ordinance 031-402 is an ordinance to amend the management salary ordinance for 2012 to 2014.
Move the ordinance setting March 19th for public hearing, same date to be advertised.
Second.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes. At this time, we have resolutions 401 to resolution 433. Does any member of the public wishes to address the council on any of these specific resolutions? Please come forth to the microphone, state your name and address.
Good evening, Charles Cradaville, 6th Ward of Brunswick. I want to ask first about 405, the additional legal fees for Officer Brad Verdell's representation. At the last meeting, I brought up concerns over dates that don't match up as to when he left the department. Did anybody look into when he was?
That is not part of this resolution, but we will gladly answer that question in the public portion of the meeting. It has nothing to do with the resolution.
So there will be an answer to that question?
Well, we will try to see if we have the answer to that question.
Okay, I'll ask during the public comment then. And the last one I want to ask about is 32. This is what's going on here. with Firehouse Museum.
Yes, Mr. Lappin.
On February 10th, the city terminated its contract with the subcontractor who was awarded the job at the firehouse. Tecton is the name of the company. We terminated for their failure to perform, their failure to pay their subs promptly, their failure to supply enough skilled labor on the job every day. So since then, the city has been managing the job. We would like to continue to manage the job, but in order to pay the subs who have remained and are committed to the project, we need to be able to enter into an agreement with them for prospective work.
So that's the,
Prospective of February 10th.
so we are,
So if I recall, there was a hearing at this body about the selection of Tecton. And I wanted to ask, was there any indication that they wouldn't be able to fulfill the job at that hearing, or was there any concerns about this at that time?
yes.
Not to my knowledge.
They were the best of the bad lot at the time.
And does anybody know why they were unable to do this work for us? I know they also lost another contract in Gloucester County.
Do we have the, do we know the reason?
I have reason to believe they have financial troubles.
It's a financial matter.
And the last question is, does this affect the timeline for, when is the community center going to open?
Does the completion time continues to be the same one, or does it change?
Now, the completion time is regrettably in the past. They had to, under the specifications, they needed to produce the building to us in August. They've given us many reasons why they could not produce the building in August. We then had an understanding that we would have the building available to the tenancies on January 1st. That date is coming down. We are trying our best to get Catholic Charities into the first floor space as soon as possible. I hesitate giving you a date, but we are getting very close to being able to establish one.
So this time we don't have a projected time of completion?
Will it be this year?
The first floor, obviously, they're
Yes,
trying to
it'll
put
be this year.
the tenant there, so it'll be this year.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else from the public wishes to address the council on the resolutions that we just, resolution 401 to resolution 433?
Move the resolution.
Second?
Roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes, at this time, we have an item for discussion by the council, is the possible amendment to the renewable ordinance. Mr. Shanley, if you could give us a summary on the proposed amendments?
No problem, Madam Council President. After the recent snowstorms, I say that in plural, we've unfortunately been experiencing a lot of problems with getting property owners to clean and remove their snow. In fact, I think some of the residents have addressed the council about that in meetings past. In an effort to try to enhance, if you will, our enforcement ordinance, we have proposed to the council to shorten the time frame under which a property owner has to clean the snow and ice. Right now, it's 12 hours after the storm ceases or stops, if you will. And that 12 hours does not include nighttime hours, which conceivably could be 36 hours from the time the storm stops until the time a property owner has to clean the snow and ice on the sidewalk. Thereby, their failure to do so would allow the city to issue a summons. So what we propose to do is modify the ordinance to allow a shorter time frame. And it's proposed that we allow a 6-hour time frame from the time that the snow stops, the storm stops, to allow the property owner to clean up the snow and ice. Now, that 6 hours, okay, will not run from 9 at night till 7 in the morning. So we'll still give property owners an opportunity to have daylight hours to do the cleaning. I will tell you that, we did a little research. Some big cities do it this way. In fact, New York City has a similar ordinance that we propose. In fact, New York City has a shorter time frame. They have 4 hours from the time that the snow stops, except in 9 at night till 7 in the morning. We looked at the practicalities of it, and we proposed from the law department perspective, a 6-hour time frame. It's certainly up to the council as to what your pleasure may be with the time frame. But the whole idea is to try to enhance the snow removal process by property owners and hopefully enable people with enough time to get it done.
This property owners and renters, no? And renters?
Yeah, it would be property owners, tenants, commercial tenants, anyone who has maintenance control over a particular sidewalk area abutting in front of their property.
The only thing that concerns me a little bit, those senior citizens who have a home that might not have the ability to have somebody right away, although it gives ample time, the other one gives a little bit more time. That would be my only concern, thinking about those who are not able to find somebody who could help them out to show this. That's my only concern about this. Anybody that's from the council wishes to?
What would the cost be of the fine connected with the summons?
The fine now is at up to $125 under the ordinance. We don't propose to modify that. That's presently existing.
So pretty much we're just taking it and cutting the hours from 12
Right.
to 6, pretty much.
Is there any,
Exactly.
is there any possibility of perhaps even just an older lady or gentleman calling in just to either just get an extension or at least put it on record or something along those lines, that they're trying but can't do that, or use a little common sense to?
Well, ideally, I suspect that enforcement will be sensitive to those issues. Generally, what happens is, they knock on the door where they see the snow hasn't been removed, and I suspect in the discretion of the officer, if there's an extenuating circumstance, the housing officer would take that into consideration.
Who is it the housing or is it the
Yes,
police? Or?
code enforcement usually writes these tickets.
Can that, let's see if we, as we move forward, look into, can that be added to the resolution that is to the discretion of the code enforcement officer, that if they see an elderly or an able body that is not able to clean the snow, that they have the ability to use discretion in terms of the.
Well, an officer, yeah, I understand what you're saying. The code
It's not
official
reminding me
has the
so
discretion
much.
to issue a summons or not, depending on, the circumstances.
But does that, you said they're using discretion, does that leave us open to, suppose you have 2 neighbors, you know what I'm saying, both of them didn't shovel or whatever, one may be elderly, one may be, you know what I'm saying, at what point do we cut off and say, okay, this person may not be able to get it done, most money you have a 60-year-old and a 65-year-old, you know what I'm saying, and they'll say, this person may not be able to get it done, this person may be get it done, one person gets a ticket, one person doesn't. Does it become, selective enforcement, or, how do we?
Well, I would suggest we write that into the ordinance. The ordinance is going to be the ordinance with respect to the time frame. Just like with any other enforcement. A police officer has the ability to give someone a speeding ticket if they're 1 mile an hour over, but generally that doesn't happen. If you're 2 or 3 miles over, they'll give you a warning and tell you to slow down next time.
And plus just these, I'm sorry, plus the other ordinance that you spoke of, like New York and other cities, nobody has a clause or anything in there as far as age discrimination or anything like that. No, right?
No, it applies to everyone equally.
Thank you.
This comes up on second reading. I suspect that Mr. Walls will be here, and he can hear your concerns, but there should
Okay.
be some judgment used in the enforcement of that. And of course, the judges in imposing the penalty can use the same kind of, hopefully, good judgment as far as assessing penalty.
That was the only thing that was saying. New Jersey, usually people have lived in high rises, so it's easier to, they have hired somebody to clean it here. It's like a little bit of a different situation. But definitely we will hear from Director Hall and see. So for the next meeting, we'll look it up.
Right, we can agendize it for the next
Put it in
meeting.
the agenda so that way we can have.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are getting ready to start with before we start into the public portion of the meeting, there's a few things that I want to address. There was some things that have happened from the last meeting to this meeting. I'm pretty sure we have heard about this situation with the Fresh Grocer. Speculations that it's going to close, that it's not going to close, they owe money, so what's going to happen? I spoke to Ms. Karen, the Secretary of the Brunswick Parking Authority, just to see what was the situation. And he assured me that the Brunswick Parking Authority is working and continues to work diligently with the people from French Grocer to come up with a resolution to this situation. And they're trying to put a resolution that is beneficial to everyone involved, recognizing that that supermarket or having a supermarket in that location is a great benefit to the community. So they're working also on alternative solutions, just to see if what they have with the Fresh Grocer doesn't work, what else can be alternative solutions to that location. And again, the location is optimal for a supermarket, so hopefully we will see. I'm a believer that we should have a supermarket there, the community has to benefit from it. So I hope that the Fresh Grocer stays, pays what they owe, and that we can move forward and have, continue having them in our community. Or bring somebody else if that's the case. There was, with the water department, there was a meeting with Milltown. The Borough of Milltown held a public meeting on Monday. Frank Maresca, the director of the New Brunswick Water Department, was there. And if you could give us an update on the meeting.
Madam President, Council. I attended the public hearing at the Borough of Milltown Monday night, specifically to discuss the public notification that was issued by the City of New Brunswick Water Utility in November of last year regarding the violations that were incurred. The purpose of the hearing was to specifically address the residents' concerns and questions regarding the public notification. There was, I estimated, about 15 to 20 people in attendance. There's a lot of questions that were asked. The questions were directed, the Q&A session was set up like a panel discussion. The questions were addressed to myself, council members of Milltown, the borough engineer, the borough utility staff, as well as representatives from the DEP. Residents had several questions regarding what happened, how it happened, why it happened, what improvements are we doing to ensure that this never happens again. Of the individuals that I spoke to, both before, during, and after the public hearing, indicated to me that their questions were answered and their concerns were addressed, and that they felt confident that New Brunswick Water Utility was on the right track to improvement.
Thank you. There's also, just to give you an update, there was some concern about the potholes in the city, obviously because of the snow. Just got a report that Public Works Department had repaired over 2,000 potholes in the city, and there's still some more that need to be done. So they're still working on it, so hopefully those areas that still need work, we will continue to work on it, and hopefully we're blessed with better weather so we could finish this right away.
Madam President,
Yes.
I think they mentioned in the website and all around that if somebody has one that hasn't been brought to their attention, that they should call the Department of Public Works.
And also, yeah, on the website there's information on that if you identify that. There's also, I'm pretty sure everybody had heard, there was a shooting this past Saturday on 2nd Street, which resulted in injuries and a death of one young person. I know that the police department is investigating the shooting. Captain Miller, I don't know if you have any update on it at this time, besides that the investigation is ongoing.
As you know, I can't comment on any specifics right now. It's still an ongoing investigation, and we're moving forward.
Thank you. There's also, there was a information out there about a lawsuit that was brought up, was filed against the city by Charlie Cradaville regarding a request that he made under the Open Public Records Act and the Common Law Right of Access. He was asking for some maps showing boundaries for the Rogers University Police Department and the Brunswick Police Department. Since this is a matter of litigation, this council will have no comment at this time about that matter, so we will not discuss that tonight because it's under litigation and we are not allowed to do so. And I just wanted, for the past, at the last meeting, and for a couple of meetings back, I've been doing a lot of thinking about things that have been going on here at the council meeting. And I have found myself reminding, when I look back, reminding people that we have to, the importance of having a productive and cordial discussion without the need to use personal attacks, without the need to use personal insults, without the need to be disrespectful. And it is evident by when we have people in front of us that there are some people that are very passionate about the challenges and the concerns that they have. And sometimes that passion that they have and that energy turns into a disrespectful discussion. And I'm a true believer that as a community we need to be passionate about our community. We need to be passionate about the challenges that we face. We need to be passionate about the challenges that we see. We need to be passionate about the challenges that we might perceive that are happening, that are detrimental to our community. But when we are coming here, when all of us are here, and when we display that passion and that energy, I believe comes with a great responsibility. And that responsibility is that we need to conduct ourselves in a productive, responsible, and respectful manner in order for us to move this community and to have progress. And as I stated many times here, when we have discussions in this council with the public, we need to agree to disagree. It's very simple, but we do it in a respectful way. With that said, I believe that we need to start looking at the way we conduct ourselves, and we need to remember that as community residents, as community leaders, that some of us call ourselves, we need to remember that we are examples to our children, we are examples to our youth, and we are examples to our community and to everybody. So we need to look inside ourselves and find out what we have in common, and we need to start working together in order to effect progress in our communities. We need to put our egos aside, we need to put our personal agendas aside, and we need to come as a united community in looking for solutions or things that we can do to help that are common, with people that we have in common, that we can work together, because all of us have the same passion and the same pursuit, which is we want a city that is safe, we want a city that is healthy, and we want a city that continues to be a prosperous one. So we can no longer afford to continue talking about the past without making a conscious and true effort to improve the present as we move into the future. We need to realize that in order to move forward, we need to take the first step to open the possibilities of collaborations with others. We have many organizations in town, we have agencies in town that are working very hard to address challenges that this community faces. And if you are concerned, my respectful advice would be that if you are concerned about healthy eating or healthy life, join the New Brunswick Food Alliance. Be active in there and do something about it. If you are concerned about crime in the city, join the efforts of a crime watch group in the area. And if there's no one, work together so you could form one. Put your words into action. If you are concerned about our youth, there's plenty of programs in the city that are looking for mentors in this community to help our kids. So join us, join the community and do something about it. Let's not just do the talk, but let's start doing the work also. Also, in many occasions, the council, as a part of the meeting, when we hear from residents, that come here rightly for with some challenges that they have with the snow removal, challenges that there's some houses in the city that are foreclosure and there's dirty, there's garbage, valid points, valid concerns that our residents have. But I would also ask you that sometimes when you bring those challenges to us, there's a whole time of time that you should have done something about it. Again, I will ask you as a resident, you have the ability to call the departments in charge of the quality of life issues here in the city. You could do that. You don't have to wait to come to the city council to say, oh, this happened, or they did not shovel the snow, or they didn't do this. Call them. Report the situation. And if you call them, take a name. You don't have to say why. You have the right to ask who you were talking to. Take the name of the person. Take the time that you called. Get the dates. Get all that information that is needed in order to address that situation. And if it doesn't happen, then come to us with all that information so that we are able to assist you and do a better job and looking at that. We can no longer do something if we don't have a name, if we don't have the proper information, if we don't have dates. There is so little that we can do. You have the ability to address it before you come here. Without that information, the alleged situation or the alleged challenge will continue to exist because we don't have facts dealing, to address that situation. So write it down. Do you, as a resident, do your point, come back. Please do so if that didn't work. Lastly, the more I thought about it also at the last meetings, I was raised by a mother. She raised 5 of us. And one of the things that she really drilled us, if you want to call it that way, it was the respect, that we needed to respect others. Regardless of the situation, even though it's hard sometimes to do so. And I'm sure that you did too. That our parents, that was one of the values that they put in all of us. I work with youth at risk in this city. And I usually tell when I'm working with the kids, they usually come, well, the teacher disrespect me, or this one disrespect me. And the first thing that I say when I talk to them is that, how did you behave? Did you respect them? So we need to remember that in order to get respect, we need to give respect. Okay? So remember that we are examples. Whatever we do, the way we behave, our kids are looking. The youth are looking. So just remember, that's a big responsibility that we have. So I've been talking about this for a while. Therefore, from this meeting forward, the following behavior will not be tolerated here as part of the council meeting. I will not tolerate any harassment of any type. I will not tolerate any profanity, insults, personal attacks, verbal abuse, no threats. It's not fair. We're here to listen to you, and we are more than willing to listen to you. But it's not fair for us, the staff, or anybody here, to be expected to listen to personal attacks, to insults without being, and just leave that unpunished. There's no way. My thing is, if the situation arises where you are using this behavior that is exhibited, I will respectfully ask you to stop the behavior, that you are out of order. Very simple. And if it doesn't stop, that we cannot continue to have a civil discussion here as residents and as people that we, public officials that want to help you out. If we can, I would ask my colleagues for a motion to adjourn the meeting. It's as simple as that. We cannot continue using this public portion as a tax. We're here to move forward. We're here to work together. We live here. Sometimes some people forget that we live here. We drink the same water. Our kids go to the same schools that your kids go. So we are here for the same thing. We have something in common, and we need to start working together. Also, since I became president of the council, some people have criticized, some people say praise the fact that I don't keep with time limits when it comes to the public portion of the meeting. I believe that that's the way it should be, so that's why I have been doing it. Even though I am very aware that under the local rules of order and other provisions of the municipal code of the council, there is a code. If you want to write it down, it's 2.08.150 of the municipal code that says, under the heading of matters of addressing the council, it says the following: statements are addressed to the presiding officer of the council and not to any member thereof. He or she shall limit his or her statement, the public, to 5 minutes unless further time is granted by the council. I was not doing that, so I was breaking that regulation. So since I'm supposed to be an example and be an example, starting tonight, I'm gonna abide by the regulations. If I see the need, with the understanding that if I see the need to listen to give you extra time, that is open for the council to discussion, I will give you the time. I thank you for your participation. I thank you for caring about the city. We all do. And with that, any member of the public who wishes to address this council, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and I thank you.
Hello, Henry Torres once again. First of all, Mr. Hoffman, thank you for that day. We had a conversation outside. I really do appreciate that.
I just addressed it, and I was, okay.
That was the first
Sorry,
time.
sorry.
Where do I start? You have a lot to say. First of all, I told you that if I felt that my aunt's situation with the accident on Livingston Avenue was more disrespected, I would have been back. I was coming back, and obviously I'm here for that first. 2 days after they put that electronic speed limit and other sign there, 2 days after, took it right off. Everything's clear now. Major smack in the face. I don't know if they wanted us to smile and be happy, and then, I don't know. You guys, I'm done, I'm tired. I'm tired. Seriously, what was that about? You know, putting it there, putting it on for 2 days and then taking it off. She's still almost on her deathbed, you know what I mean? I just don't get that. I'm trying not to get my personal feelings involved, but that's just a very bad smack in the face. Now, what we're really here for today is the so-called, you know, like our so-called community leaders, the so-called community liaison. What is her position? What is the person's position? What are they there for? They get a nice salary. I never see them ever in the community. We want to have meetings with these people. We want to talk business, and it's not going anywhere. You used a lot of words, and I want you guys to take out the word respect, because I don't care what anybody says. We never got respected. And when I say we, the people on that side of town. So let's just throw that word out in many ways. Now, we should get somebody who's from the community. I mean, from the community, not because you live here, but actually see what goes on, actually feels what goes on, because that's the only way you're going to get help. How in the world can we have a conversation and you say we're here to respect each other and learn by example and all that to our so-called community leaders? What type of comment was that? You know how many kids out there right now stop doing the things they were doing that was bad because of some of us so-called community leaders? You understand that? That means something to us, man. It might not mean nothing to y'all, and it's not personal against y'all, but you say, why don't we come here, and why not go to the other places to join the other programs and all that? Why do you think we come here? Because we need your help. I keep saying the same stuff over and over and over again. And by the way, you can shut down this 1,000 times. He can make all the phone calls he wants right now. We shown in the city that we will stand for everything, handcuffed and all. So that doesn't matter to none of us. But we don't want to take it there. When we did the nice route, we never got respected. No results, no nothing. When we did the mean route, it ain't go again. I mean, I don't understand. Every time I come on this mic, I say the same stuff. And there's no results. 2 days after my aunt was almost killed, and 2 other people died in that same area, they take all that down. Why? What was the reason for it to put it up there? Just people could see it, they have to be smiling about? But let's go back to that liaison. We need somebody ASAP. And trust me, I said it before, we'll shut the city down again. That's not a threat, that ain't it. You see it. We talk what we're about. No, not all non-violence. But when it's peaceful, no results. When it's mad and angry, whatever you want to call it, no results. That's why I don't know what else to say anymore. I mean, I'm a changed man. I'm getting better, closer to God. Because trust me, the things I want to say, I will get kicked out probably. You know what I mean? Everybody here know I used to be that way. Results. It's about results. It's not about talking and joining the programs and all this stuff. It's about results. We've been doing this about 2-3 years now. And I mean, literally, I'm trying to think, is there a new result? Oh yeah, I forgot. 2 days ago, the signs was up there for 2 days. That was the only results. I don't even know where to go with it because I don't want to take up all the time. why we come here? Because we come here to get help from you guys. That's why we come here, because you are the voice for the community, but for the legal side and the business side of it. We can't knock down walls by ourselves, marching and everything like that. It's not gonna happen. We all know that.
I just have one question. In terms of the community liaison, who are you talking about? The city community liaison?
I don't even know if she's still here anymore. I was talking about the woman, that Charlie gave, yes.
The community liaison in terms of that setup.
Okay, is she still in community liaison?
Yes, she is.
Okay, she's not here today, correct?
No, she's not here.
Okay. She should be here today? I mean, I'm asking the question, is she usually here?
She's usually not all the meetings. Some meetings she's here, some others are not.
Okay, I've been here at least 4 or 5 times and I haven't seen her maybe once.
She was here like 3 minutes, I believe it was 3 minutes there, and I thought that we would discuss.
Have you had any complaints about her? And not personal complaints, I mean as far as,
There is some, the position of community liaison is a position that was appointed by, it's appointed by the mayor, and this council doesn't have anything in terms of the position. The mayor is the one who appoints it, he's the one that deals with that. To this point, to the best of my knowledge, the council doesn't have anything to do with that position in the sense of decision. That's to the best of my knowledge, again. That doesn't mean that is correct. It means that I need to do more, to get more information about it. That's one. The other thing that I want to address to you was in terms of the Livingston Avenue. When you were here, you were back to hear that. I reached out to the county, to the freeholder police, who is in charge of safety and highway. And they did, he heard, they don't understand that that's the county. They have been having some talks between the county engineers and the city of what is the best way to address it. They were looking at what can be done as soon as possible, because as you know, the county is the one in charge of that. In the meantime, when that was happening, in the process, the speed limit was there, the flashing was for a while. I think it was more than 2 days, because I pass by there every day.
no, it's about 3 days.
And then they put the pedestrian signs on the
All that
side.
stuff is down.
No, this morning was there.
There's one little stop sign there, no bigger than this much.
Unless the car just took it, because there was 2 this morning, I passed by there.
All that stuff is going now.
So, and I know that there's more than they're looking at the flashing ones in the meantime, also the county to see if that's something. So they have been working. It's not as fast as all of us would like to see it, but they are dealing with it, and we're on top of it. And I know Freeholder Police knows about it, and he's working on it with the county.
We need results.
And the other thing is that, in terms of the committee liaison, that appointment, as you know, and people know, it was done by Mayor Cahill because of the internal affairs situation that happened with the police department. I don't know, and I think that, I'm guilty of that sometimes also, to the point until, the role of it. What is the role of the community liaison in this process? And it's to facilitate for those who felt that during the time that Sergeant Rowe was there, that they felt that the cases were not processed, if you want to call it, taken in a manner that they felt that it was fair. So this is a process. Correct me if my understanding is not the one, I'm just looking at Mr. Hamilton just in case. So that was the process for that position, for that committee, for that specific process to deal with the internal affairs.
That's what she was hired for that process?
That's her position. That's the community liaison part of it. That's all she does.
But she's still here. She could have left after he left.
What was that?
She could have left after he left if she was hired just for that, right?
She was hired. She was a city attorney, but at that point, when that happened, the mayor came, they came up with a procedure, a protocol, just for those people that might feel, and that she was appointed as the community liaison to facilitate the process of the internal affairs matters. At the last meeting that we had here, I gave an update, when in terms of the community liaison and some of the cases, the only case. And I did acknowledge in public that there was some, in my opinion, there were some errors that took place in implementing the process. But in the same way, the problem wasn't the process, it was the implementation of it. And that it was my hope that next, if we have a case, that I believe we have one, but that we don't, I think the person decided not to pursue it, I'm not sure, that we do not repeat those mistakes again. Because it's the implementation of the process should have been, the time that it took to me, is, no matter how you look at it, it was too long. So we are learning from the challenge that we had, and moving forward, I don't expect to see any more challenges of that nature.
Do you agree to, should I say, do you agree with the statement of that people should be able to choose or have some type of word of choosing a community liaison?
At this point, that role is I don't think that people is the one, I think that's, in this instance, with the internal affairs, that was the prerogative of the mayor. I don't know if I'm Mr. Hamilton, if there's, if I am.
I think you described it just right. It was to help people who felt that they had been wronged, if you will, in the internal affairs process. And it was not to represent them, but to see that they got a chance to tell their story.
And just in that case, but just for that, not just for other issues?
No,
in the
for that
community?
was it, that's
Okay,
it.
so once again, so she's there just for that, so can there be another appointed community liaison for other issues?
Other issues, I don't see why not. The police department has a community liaison also, Sergeant Gould.
Everything is connected to Mayor Cahill.
No.
You don't get
But what I'm
business
saying,
on-
that's the police, it's okay, it's the police department, they have one, they have one, but I hear you, I hear
You
what
know
you're
what I mean?
saying.
Like, I'm trying to see what we
I
can
hear
do
you.
besides the police and mayor and all that, what we
Absolutely,
can put our people in.
I will definitely look at that and see what can be done.
All right,
But you know-
I'm gonna let somebody else speak now, but the error that you said earlier, the error was hiring her, period. That's the error. That's it.
Thank you.
Bernadette Shabbat, Somerset, New Jersey. Well, I was prepared to do something I think would take more than 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to sum it up. I'm addressing the council today in regards to the community liaison process, as well as the community liaison herself, the hearing officer, and then the decision that was given on behalf of my husband, Noble Shabazz. Was the council provided with a copy of that decision? Okay, so everyone has read it? Okay. So then I can skip a lot of reading from it. There's some concerns there. I also want to piggyback on what Brother Fahim said. The issue was raised from the very beginning as far as a conflict with appointing Ms. Gayden as the community liaison. And we all share that we still, stand strong that there's a conflict there. To appoint someone into a position that has the interest of the city is kind of, asking for, the people not to get any real justice. The allegiance that they have is to the city. She works for the city, and throughout this process, the things that have happened has shown that that's who everything was in favor for, the city. As far as the decision, it's troubling to me how Mr. Hoffman, made his decisions when, and again, I have to skip over everything that I prepared to try to make my point. Mr. Hoffman made his decisions basically to not recommend a new investigation, but he acknowledged things that that warranted discussion, things that needed to be reviewed. He acknowledged bad behavior, so to speak. Let me not say so to speak. He acknowledged that one of the officers gave some troubling testimony at a trial But that officer is no longer here, so it's kind of like he was thrown out there to say, yeah, he did something wrong, but nothing can be done now because he's gone. When had they investigated him in the beginning properly and not wait almost a year to contact him back, that officer may have been dealt with and not on the streets to shoot Barry DeLoach. So it all comes back to, you know, not doing things properly. You know, the officer, the hearing officer made a note that the process in which it took Internal Affairs, you know, to contact Noble Shabazz about his complaint was lengthy, and I'm now paraphrasing again because I can't, you know, go word for word. He acknowledged that the process was lengthy. He suggested that these policies, if that's the police policy to wait, be reviewed. But so he made recommendations for matters to be addressed in an old investigation, but didn't give a recommendation for a new investigation. So are these concerns and issues supposed to be just discussed with the police department, and therefore that makes the process of the community liaison no good? Like, he didn't get the renewal of an investigation, but there's clear proofs that things weren't done properly. And so it's to the point where we all expected that he was not gonna get, you know, the recommendation. And that is pretty much proven in how the hearing officer chose to write his decision. He was given testimony about the matter that wasn't even from evidence introduced. So his testimony was kind of independent and personal in nature. It was information that none of the transcripts provided him with. So in his opening letter that was attached to the decision, he said that the protocol required and did not require, an independent investigation, but yet he conducted one. He based his decision on laws that he quoted in the decision that weren't applicable to the charges against Noble Shabazz. So they were irrelevant. He was setting a precedence to say, well, surely if an officer has a right to do this, then he has a right to do this, even though it's not a law. And that's not the case. You have to be within the law to force someone or request someone to do something. Otherwise, that request can be denied, which is what the case was with my husband. So I feel that his entire decision was inappropriate. It showed lack of confidence for the appointed position. And I'm going back to the initial implementing of these positions. You know, I don't think that these people are looking at it from a perspective of right and wrong. I think everything, and it's being proven, is being covered up to protect these officers. If you can sit here and you can point out that an officer's testimony was troubling, it contradicted police communication dispatch, that constitutes perjury, discredits that officer. But it's like, that is nothing. Mr. Shabazz's situation has been, his statements, his complaints, his story has been consistent from day one. He has not been proven a liar. Officers have been proven that they lie. He has not altered with documents. There's questions that someone, whether it was Officer Maison, because his name was on the second report, someone altered a police record, but So when you start realizing that these wrong things are being done, you have to take into consideration that there's something going on there. So then when you start talking about, credibility, how is it so difficult for them to decide that the credibility should lie with the person who has been honest from the beginning?
I just want to just interrupt you just real quick, because it's more than 5 minutes. If it's okay with the council, we allow more time to position us. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, at the end, I'm just gonna basically say this. You asked for patience. You made it clear that, this was the first time that, and I made it clear to you that bothers me. My husband's situation is not the first situation the city of New Brunswick has had with the police department and maybe other administration. So now this process has to be implemented. It should have been implemented. So a lot of errors have been made, all at his expense, all at the people's expense. The people keep suffering, and at this point, we need it to stop. We need the city of New Brunswick to realistically sit down, look at this situation, accept the wrong that was done, and make amends and move forward. We don't want to be here every week or every couple of weeks or every couple of months begging and pleading for justice. Justice is something that should come from everyone, from this council to the municipal courts to the police department. That's what they're supposed to stand for. But yet, we have to fight the hardest for it against them. And that's not right. This hearing officer, made statements, that Mr. Shabazz is, in his concrete, knowledge of the law, or sees the law in concrete terms. Well, how is it you either do something, you're either right or you're wrong? It's like he wants to imply these putty rules for the officers when they're out there. He wants to give the impression that it's okay for officers to amend or make up laws as they're out there to say, officer discretion, or officer safety, or surely if an officer can do this, he can do that. No, an officer can do what the law says he can do and nothing more. And that needs to be understood, because then that's when you cross the line of violating people's rights, and then we have to come back and forth, and we have to make these positions to say, look, my rights were violated, whether they see it as petty because it was just a window or not. Then you have to look at what's going on in the world. How often do you hear on a routine traffic stop that an officer was injured? It's usually the civilian. People are being abused, harassed, even murdered by law enforcement. And I'm not saying that all law enforcement are bad, but more so than not are good. Are bad. More so are bad than good. And we have the greater expectation of fear when we're out there. And it's like there's no consideration given there. He made comments that there was no indication in any of the reports of weather conditions that would have warranted a window not being rolled down. Well, officer safety is not an issue if it's snowing or raining. They're concerned with the person pulled over in the car, being exposed to inclement weather. But someone who is nervous or just taking a precaution and still following the instruction and giving them what they want doesn't have that same consideration?
What I would say, like I said before, I acknowledge that the process was implemented. There was some errors that, mistaking the implementation of it. I cannot comment on anything related to the case, and I always have put that I will not even so more because I know Mr. Chavaz's litigation against the city, so I cannot make any comments.
Right.
But I thank you for being here.
Can I just add that I do want to reiterate that it is extremely important that this community liaison and hearing officer be replaced with someone who has no affiliation with the city of New Brunswick.
Thank you for your comment. Somebody's phone?
Hi, my name is Danielle Moore. I live at 211 Joyce Cameron. I am here for two different situations. One, I realize ever since Officer Savage has retired, where he was to handle traffic and safety, I realize no one ever comes around to see if the crossing guards are on the duty like he used to do. If you can tell me who has taken his place.
Right here.
Okay, if you can tell me who has taken his place for safety.
Captain Peter, who's in charge? Sergeant Trick. Sergeant Trick is here. Right here, Sergeant Trick.
Okay, so will you be going around in the morning and afternoon, making sure each crossing guard is on their corner?
Is that part of the?
It's part of his responsibilities.
Yeah, so it's part of the responsibilities.
Well, I see that's not happening. That's the one reason why I'm saying not to be telling on anyone, but to make it safe for our children.
That's why it's my statement before, that we need names, we need locations, we need things so that we could go to the person, and when we have no names, we cannot go to anybody. If that's a situation that you have seen, then we could go to Sergeant Trick and say, why they got you so, and I know that you're excellent with that, and I thank you for that. You take pictures, you're one of the persons that usually bring information, and you have done your due diligence before coming here. So if you have the information, the name, just, it's Sergeant Trick, if you have the dates, the time, please provide it to Captain Miller at the end of the meeting so he could forward, and let me know also, so that way I could follow up in terms of that.
Okay, and then my next situation, that's with snow removal. I have given you over 25 pictures with city snow removal. I heard you announce that, okay, house residents will have up to 6 hours, and if they do not clean it, they will get fined. But please tell me, what is the time limit with the city to clean their property?
Mr. Lashley?
Should be the same.
The same, the rule starts in the house, so.
But see, I don't think it should be the same due to what I showed you last meeting, over 25 pictures of Joyce Comer Avenue, the park where it was never cleaned, and that's a major bus stop for middle school and elementary.
And I know, Mr. Lashley, I know you were gonna follow up on that, were you able to?
I did. We had the area cleared the following morning after the last meeting, but Ms. Moore pointed out the fact that we did a poor job in clearing the crosswalks on Joyce Kilmer, and she was right. I had them cleaned up the next morning.
I thank you for responding quickly the next day, which I did call, and they did come over immediately and salted and removed all the snow so our children could pass through. But my next situation is, that's about 2 months ago. I forget the council's name, where she's in charge of real estate lawyer. That's the owner, which he is here today, 147 Joyce Comer Avenue. He put in a complaint with 145 Joyce Comer, where this house has been vacant over 6 months or more. Which I showed you in the last pictures, that's how there's no snow removal done, how the kids have to pass there. But now, where you can also tell through my pictures from now and then, it's terrible, no maintenance. I mean, the odor, you pass through there, is so horrible. That was where she said that she was gonna check into it. Was it bank owned?
It was, Ms. Aguilar, I remember you did, and we follow up, and I know that we're gonna look into that property. It was one, and I remember that, do you remember if it was followed? Because I know we didn't know the bank was the one, it was a foreclosure. It's a foreclosure property. And they were trying to figure out which was the bank, because there were several of them, if I recall correctly, at 145, because there was an issue with the trash and.
Well, like I said, here's the owner, I'll let him talk to that. But what I'm saying also, it's been, like I said, over 2 months. Where is she really doing her job like everyone else says?
I think she was here at that time, but I know that, I had asked, I think, it wasn't her who was gonna follow up. But I know we asked, we put it down as a follow-up, and I think Mr. Larkin, you were here in one of those meetings. But I have my notes, but I will look and I will follow up and I see what happened. I know it was looked, it was Mac owned, and there was some challenges getting in touch with that bank. But I will follow up and I thank you for bringing the information to us.
Okay, I would just like to show you one thing, even though, like I said, I have the pictures to show how trashy it is. But this is something I want to show you. Maybe, council, that's where you may understand. This is the, just to prove what I'm saying. This is the Martin Luther King March that we had on Joyce Comer Avenue. Just by the pictures there, which is in front of the house where you have everyone's attention to see that they're looking over there to show you how it's a horrible odor, that something died in there, is someone dead in there, but to show you the pictures, how it gets everyone's attention as you walk through there. So something needs to be done as soon as possible over there, and you can have the pictures to show that what I'm speaking is true, and the owner of 147, where he's been dealing with it, with tickets and horrible odor coming to his house. I'll let him continue from
Thank you,
here.
Mr. Mayor, and thank you. I know that you are one of those active and always bring this stuff, and I see you almost every morning showing your sidewalk and cleaning your area, so I thank you.
Yes, I do, thank you.
Hi, my name is Mr. Teodoro Pagan. I live in New Brunswick for 54 years. I got a son, born and raised on here. He's a policeman in Brunswick for all the time. And I respect the city in Brunswick, and I love it. And I love that some people that work in here, believe me, they deserve to work. But what they do for the owner of the house, that's wrong. Okay? According to the Constitution, the American Constitution, they're not supposed to go to somebody's house. If you live in the house, if you one family house, they're not supposed to bother you. That bother somebody's property. I mean, somebody's private property.
Mr. Pagan, right here, so I could,
Okay, now, long time ago, they went to my house, one guy, and I told him, I said, you're supposed to come over here. I live in the house. That's
What
one
went
house.
into your house, Mr. Pagan?
That's a long time ago, about 4 or 5 years.
Oh, over 5 years ago?
No, I come over here, and that time, I have a meeting here together with you people. And they tell me, the guy go around the house and started curse, 75 tickets, 75 tickets, 75 tickets. That's harassment. Okay? Now, I went to the main guy in there, and he told me, they're not supposed to do that. I called Trento. Trento told me they're not supposed to buy one family house and 2 family houses if the owner lives. See? But, okay, now, it's not that bad. My problem is the house next to me. That house is closed almost 10 years, maybe more than that. The guy bought the house in 1994. He lived a couple of years, and then he left it, and he was left it, and then he come once a month, and then he left it forever. He never touched the house for nothing. The garbage all around, dirty, and that's asbestos. That's poison ivy, rot all over. Now, that house not supposed to be there no more, believe me, because it's dangerous for the people. Now, I don't know why the lady told me that they can find the dress for the owner of the house. That's wrong. The dress for my house, you find my name right here in the syllable. Now, that house belongs to the bank. Okay? Shea Manhattan Bank. It's right in the corner here, so right there. You told me there or no? There's a sign in the window in there that says Shea Manhattan Bank. There's a telephone, everything in there. They're supposed to do something for the people. I mean, if they sell me ticket because it's a couple of people around the house, you know, because there's a store in the corner and that's a parking, the cheapest store with people. If they sell me a ticket for that, how come they don't do something with the house?
Mr. Pagan, I have one question. Since that house has been empty, I know that you were here one meeting, a couple of meeting backs with Ms. Danielle, that you were here with her. Prior to that, have you told the inspection department? Have you told the city to report the house prior to coming to this?
I talked to them a lot of times, okay?
To the city, to the
Yeah,
inspections?
to the building inspector.
Okay.
And then what they do in there, they put the red ticket paper, nothing else, that's it.
Okay.
So, you know, that's how dangerous, making people sick. It's affected, they're supposed to be there, the house.
Thank you.
So I don't want to go down Trenton, because I go to Trenton and I know they want to do something about it. But, you know, I live in Brunswick, so we're supposed to deal with in Brunswick.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Any member of the council, I know Ms. Anderson, you have a question?
I just want to make sure it was the 145 that he was talking about, same thing that the lady, Mrs. Moore was talking about, right?
Yeah, 145 is still.
Another thing I never thought of that. My house used to be 145 and a half. The city changed the number, for 147. The 147 is the house next door, and the other side. Now, all the bill, everything for those people in there, they come to my house.
So there's two 147?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, my house is supposed to be 145,
Mhm.
see, because it's 148 on the other side, 142, and 146 on the other side. But they put it 147, they changed it.
Okay.
Now, I'm in trouble all the time because even the bill, they're going to for the two houses.
Okay, we'll follow up on that and see.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carter.
Yeah, my name is Nathaniel Williams. I live at 15B Hampton Road in Brunswick. Yeah, my question is this, same what this sister was speaking about earlier, about when the police file a police report, it doesn't correspond with what they charge you with. Like, I'm not pointing fingers out, like the planning board. He said in his paperwork that me and my wife went down to the planning board and filed an application. I showed Exhibit A, which I sent off yesterday, Exhibit A, a blank copy. Then it shows your income. Then it shows blank. Then it shows on page 3, the agreement between me and the contractor, blank. And then at the end, it said I was interviewed by someone, blank. But then we get stuck with a $6,500 bill. But my thing is to this. I'd like to know, how can I get the name of the person that interviewed us? I like that, you know, to go with my complaint. I also like to know, why did they pay a contractor that they didn't hire? Because I talked to the contractor, and he said Glenn Patterson told him that me and my wife didn't qualify for the program. But yet, they went on and paid him.
Mr. Williams, who is they?
O'Brien. P. O'Brien. Okay. Then I asked O'Brien. I said, O'Brien, well, who hired you? He said, the city of New Brunswick. I said, the city of New Brunswick? Who in the city of New Brunswick? Oh, I get a call from Richard Kaplan, and he tells me to come up here and do this job. I said, well, who is Richard Kaplan? So then I did some research, and I found out who Richard Kaplan was. He's in jail right now for stealing money from that program. So then they couldn't retrieve the money from Richard Kaplan, so then they came up with a bogus thing, said that we came and applied for money down here. And we didn't. And I sent a complaint off to Trenton, and I sent one off to Newark yesterday, proving this, because I gave it to y'all in 2012, and I just tossed it in the garbage, with facts and proof.
I don't think I would touch it, but there was, if I recall correctly, Mr. Hamilton, there was litigation with this. There was.
There was litigation of a lot of aspects involving Mr. Kaplan's litigation involving Mr. Williams. I don't remember Kaplan having anything more to do with his property, but I go back and take a look.
Well, I got it on tape where O'Brien said he was called by Richard P. Kaplan, not the city of New Brunswick. I got it on tape where he said, Glenn Patterson said that we didn't even qualify for the program and told him to come sue me. But he didn't want to come sue me because I kicked him out of the house for ripping out my brand new wires that I paid the electrician to do. You know, that's where my problem come in. The mortgage thing, my lawyer handling that. You know, and then I come back with the mortgage part. But right now, I'm dealing with something like you said, respect. If me and my wife didn't ask for money, y'all not going to charge us for something. We'd have been locked up. We'd be threatened to go to court. We're on probation for something that we didn't do. And then I'm trying to find, I called the Bar Association because when I talked to the FBI, they said it was a civil matter, not a criminal matter. That's where your attorneys that sued us turned it into a criminal matter. The FBI said that's not a criminal matter, it's a civil matter. So these guys took the bar exam. They're supposed to know the difference between a civil case and a criminal case. So now I called the Bar Association again and asked them, when do I file a complaint on a civil case? I mean, on malpractice, because that's my next move with the attorney that was involved, a malpractice complaint. Because if you don't know if you took oath, and then you swear under that flag, and then you swear under the Bible once you take oath, and then you got all that experience, you're supposed to know the difference between them two. You know, but then turn around and cause somebody to lose their job for 17 years, cause somebody to lose their home for something because y'all couldn't retrieve your money behind somebody that got locked up that was ripping the place off the whole time. It's unconstitutional. And I got it, and as I go on, I'm learning more about the law. Y'all forced me to learn more about the law. But then, like I said, with the attorneys, in fact, they knew better. They knew it was unconstitutional, but they abused their power anyway. And I got facts to prove it. I gave y'all the facts that proved it. Then, 2004, the Justice Department said it was unconstitutional. Who is Kitty Crew to come to my house and just tell PSG, cut that line without going to court and getting a warrant? He's supposed to talk me to court and show probable cause that he had the authority to cut that. And then that would have gave me time to present to the judge that I had the money to hire my own electrician to do that job. I didn't need the city to come do that job because I gave the money to PSG. I could have gave it to my electrician. And I showed y'all that. All that's in the paperwork I gave you. I had the money to hire my own electrician if I was warned. But I wasn't warned. It was like, cut in the program just don't work like that. First of all, you got to qualify for the program. It's a proceed that goes with that program. You just don't go down there and say, oh, Kitty Crew cut my line, send me an electrician up here and fix it. It don't work like that. That's where the corruption came in. I don't know how Richard Kaplan, because when I talked to Kevin Jones, Keith Jones or Kevin Jones, he told me, you're telling me somebody just showed up at your property and just started working on your house. I said, yes, they did. His name is O'Brien. I said, didn't you send him up here? He said, I didn't send him up here. I said, all I know, O'Brien, Richard Kaplan, and Kenny Crew was at my house. Kenny Crew told the man the work was outside. O'Brien wants to know what was my electrician charging me to do the inside. I said, what you doing the inside for? That's done already by electric contractor that I paid to do the inside.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again. You passed it 5 minutes, so I'm just going to.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to brief you.
No. Thank you for. Are we extending a few more minutes, Mr. Williams?
Okay, but the bottom line is this. I'm asking the council, where do I file a complaint on the inspectors for abuse of power, showing that the U.S. Department of Justice said it was unconstitutional for them to violate residents' rights. It's unconstitutional to just show up at their house whenever they feel they want to. It's unconstitutional to show up at their house without a warrant. It's unconstitutional to just cut somebody's line without going to the proper court season. You even heard Gayton said it one time, sitting right here when she was here at the December 30th meeting. She said, oh, we got court procedures to do that. Well, I could prove you wrong. You had me sitting right there when y'all violated mine. You didn't get no, and then I didn't even get an answer who approved them, because the ordinance wasn't even approved yet. So the council couldn't approve it. The city freeholders couldn't approve it. The 3 branches of the court system didn't approve it. Who gave them that authority to come violate our human rights? It's a violation against humanity.
Mr. Hamilton, if the resident has a complaint against a housing matter, or where do they have to file?
Well, it depends on what kind of complaint it is. They want to complain about the performance, they want to talk to Mr. Rawls. If they think it's something more serious than that, they got to go to court.
To the court itself? So obviously what he's saying, he's alleging is it's not a simple matter of it's just a little bit more than needs to be. And you did go to court,
Yeah,
right?
I went to court, but it was what you call a malicious prosecution, because they only went on what, like I say, that's why I want these answers from him. I'm finna write them a letter. I want to know who interviewed us and who told Detective Starginski all this. That's in his report. Somebody had to say that to him. but then I got the facts showing them that it's false. That's perjury.
And you said that you have a lawyer.
Yes, my lawyer is dealing with my mortgage part. He don't want no part of this. I told him I can handle this part.
Okay.
The mortgage part, he'll deal with, but when I get finished with the mortgage part, then I'll be back down here for the mortgage part. But right now, my attorney handling that. But right now, I'm dealing with the Attorney General. I'm dealing with whoever I can get the information on who authorized that. But I would like input from Glenn Patterson, who gave this police officer that type of information. Because and then Gaten said from 2006 all the way up to here, I had all the violations. 2006, the violations was in the lady's name, Angela Friend. So why were they after me? At the time that took place, the house was in the other lady's name, not mine. So, and then they lawyers should have known better.
Mr. Hamilton.
There was a judge of the Oregon Superior Court. I don't know whether it was after motions or after a full hearing. But if he was not satisfied with that, he should have appealed that judgment. To his credit, he's been making restitution. The checks come in fairly regularly. I know I've seen 2 or 3 of them. But that case is years old now.
Fraud against the court. Fraud upon the court is no statute of limitation. I mean, they made me do a lot of law work.
So what I will do, I will say, Mr. Williams, that you're in the right track, because you're either with the state attorney, you're doing, you're
Right.
exercising your right to do that, and I think that that's.
But I want to know, how do I have them held accountable for what they did?
Once, I'm assuming that once the investigation is completed, if they found to be in contempt of that they provided the information or did something that it was wrong, I know that there will be a process to deal with that.
Governor Chris Christie said New Jersey is the 5th corrupt state in the whole state of New Jersey. Okay, how can I get justice when you got the assistant city attorney? No, this is what I went against. The city attorney, the assistant city attorney, Shamby, Gaten, plus she's a special housing inspector, all of them against me. Now, you going to tell me that's constitutional? That's not constitutional. That's what you call abuse of power. That's called taking the law into your own hand. That's called making up a mock call, calling it the Sunshine Law. You can't do that. You can't come here in City Hall and just declare this here a courtroom when you got 3 branches of court out there, and then call my bank and get privileged information and then telling you to destroy it. That's a violation of my privileges.
Like I said, I hope that the state attorney takes care of it.
Oh, well, it's sure been set out, because I'm starting from A to Z, then I'm going from Z to A, and then keep on doing it until I get it.
And you have the right to do so.
Oh, yeah, because that's what I'm going to do. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Steve.
Name and address, please.
Noble Aaron Shabazz for Somerset, New Jersey. Just to quickly address what you said, I noticed when I came in, you were, I guess, laying down some new ground rules, and you made a statement regarding how you've been criticized with the way you conduct the meetings. So I'm just going to start off by making it clear that I believe I've said it publicly before that personally I have respect for you. I think you conduct the meetings in a pretty fair manner. So anything that I say, of course, is not personal against you. But it's directed at who it should go to. And so don't take anything I say personal, but I have some things to say that are important.
Absolutely, and I just want to make clear that when I said about the respect is that we had encountered some people that have they've been very disrespectful. I am open to listen to any concerns or any way of, it's just a matter of personal attacks, and that's when I have to put down that is not allowed anymore, because we're here to conduct business. This is the meeting of the council to conduct the business of the city of Brunswick. And part of that, as the open public part, which is of the public, is to bring concerns, and we are open to do that. But the same way that we are expected to respect and talk to the public in a respectful manner, then I think it's fair enough that we get that back without having to have. So it has nothing to say with what it says here, because I don't think none of us take it personal. It's when it goes a little bit beyond what is, what you should expect with the insults and the personal attacks, and actually, sometimes even verbally abusive some people. So I think we have to, so it has nothing to do, so, and if you have never had any, I consider yourself a very eloquent and respectful, you know, the way you conduct you. So I always thank you for that, because I think it shows a level of, it should be modeled by others. You know, you set an example to our community, so I thank you for that.
Thank you. Now, I'm gonna move forward with my complaint, I just wanted to make sure.
I'm not gonna count those minutes, okay?
Thank you.
I started you at 5.
All right, to address this liaison process, the whole process is flawed. And I'm going to point out how the whole process is flawed in some general ways. One, the liaison and hearing officer violate their own protocols whenever they feel like it. I demonstrated that the last time I was here. I sent letters in to the council outlining the protocols that they violated, and sent a copy of the very protocols that they gave me, that they stamped as an exhibit. So I've already proven that they violate the protocols. Also, there are clear conflicts of interest with the city attorney having the community liaison position. One, the city attorney is an advocate who prosecutes the people, while a community liaison acts more as an advocate that assists, or supposed to assist the people with dealing with internal affairs complaints. So you can't have someone be on the side of the city in an adversarial position as a city attorney whose job it is to prosecute people on a regular basis. That's what Ms. Gayton does. And then turn around and expect the people to believe that she's an advocate for them who's going to help them proceed with complaints against city police officers when these are her colleagues. That doesn't even make sense. It's obvious that there's a clear conflict of interest. Also, it's a conflict to have public hearings in her private law firm office. Ms. Gayton is also a private practicing attorney. She has the hearings that I had to have in her law office, and then arbitrarily makes up whatever rules she wants to make up because it's in her office. That's a conflict, clear. So when I point out certain things, there's no way anyone can argue against it. If they do, it would be a frivolous argument and an illogical argument. Who cannot see that? That's a conflict. If I come into your private office where you then impose your own personal rules, that's a conflict when you're supposed to be my advocate. She attempted to actually say that I couldn't bring people to witness the proceedings initially when I first requested to do that. Because I didn't trust her and I didn't trust the hearing officer. So she tried to tell me I couldn't do that. She actually lied to me and told me, well, Mr. Shabazz, the protocol's prohibited. If you would have read the protocols, you would know that they're prohibited. And I said, well, actually, ma'am, I did read the protocols and they do not prohibit it. I said, in fact, it makes no mention of whether you can or cannot bring people to witness the proceedings. So while you may claim it doesn't permit it, it doesn't prohibit it either. And since this is an informal hearing and there are no formal restrictions, then if I want to exercise my right to bring people to witness the proceeding, why is that a problem? It's not a secret tribunal. She was like, well, you're right, it's not a secret tribunal, but I don't think, well, wait a minute. You just said if I read the protocols, and I explained to her I read the protocols and it's not in them. Once I basically forced the issue, she said, well, I'll call Judge Hoffman and see what he thinks of it. And ultimately, they allowed me to bring witnesses, but it's only I have to fight for everything I got. She never acted as an advocate. She was always adversarial from day one. So how is there not a conflict? We're having meetings, we're having a hearing in her private office where she tries to dictate what the rules and regulations are. She violates the protocols. How is there not a conflict? Also, to further demonstrate that there is a conflict, recently I had a parking ticket matter in New Brunswick Municipal Court before Magistrate
Philip Burrow. While me and my queen were sitting at the court, waiting in the hallway, City Attorney Charlie Gaydon walked into the courthouse. She walked in, went into the prosecutor's office, and waited for Magistrate Burrow to enter. When he entered, she came out, greeted him, hugged him, kissed him on the cheek, and then they went to the prosecutor's office. They were in there for about 20, 25 minutes. Finally, Magistrate Burrow takes the bench, and ultimately, he says to me, Mr. Shabazz, I was just informed that you filed a civil lawsuit against the city, and since you filed a federal lawsuit against the city, there is a conflict of interest, and I cannot hear this case. These are his words on the record. He said, in fact, no New Brunswick judge can hear this case because there would be a conflict. Any New Brunswick judge is an agent of the city, and therefore a conflict automatically exists. They would automatically be presumed to have a bias against me because I have a lawsuit against the city. Now, if anybody understands conflict of interest, that same conflict should be attached to City Attorney Gaydon. The same way that magistrate can't hear, or no magistrate, not even just Mr. Burrow, no magistrate from New Brunswick can hear. He said either they would have to transfer my case to another town, to another municipal court in another town where no conflict exists, or they would have to have a visiting judge come into New Brunswick where this judge is from outside of New Brunswick's jurisdiction and would then come in and hear the hearing. And he said, if they decide to do that, they'll send me a notice letting me know that that's what's going to happen. Now,
Mr. Shabazz, I'm sorry to
yes, ma'am.
interrupt you. It's more than 5 minutes. But this council agreed with you to give a few minutes to Mr. Shabazz.
Well, I have one question, Mr. Hamilton. Did you say you have a lawsuit against the city of New Brunswick? A civil lawsuit against the city?
Yes, sir.
Is that intended us from speaking with him?
I don't think you ought to discuss it with him. It doesn't prevent him from speaking in council meeting.
He could talk, but we don't.
Okay.
So, go ahead, Mr. Shabazz.
Thank you. And I mean, that's not a problem because, I mean, for the most part, nobody from the council ever speaks to me anyway, so it's business as usual. But my point is, the magistrate said there was a conflict of interest and no New Brunswick municipal judge can hear the case against me because they recognize the conflict. All of those judges are agents of the city. No agent of the city can then be involved with my case because of the conflict. Now, if Ms. Gaydon is a city attorney who prosecutes the people when they come to court, how can she then turn around and not be considered an agent of the city when she's so supposedly acting as a liaison and supposed to be assisting people in filing complaints against other city agents, namely police officers? That's a clear conflict of interest. I don't understand how anyone can pretend that it's not. Well, I do understand how people can pretend, but the reality is it's not. Also, let me make sure I didn't skip it. Also, at the hearing, City Attorney Ms. Gaydon cross-examined. I believe at the last City Council meeting I was at, Mr. Cradaville testified or expressed that while he was at the microphone that the hearing was a sham and that the hearing officer, Mr. Hoffman, actually said to Ms. Gaydon, to City Attorney Gaydon, she shouldn't even be referred to as a community liaison, and I will never refer to her as that again. She is a city attorney. That's her true position. And he said that City Attorney Gaydon, hearing officer Hoffman said to City Attorney Gaydon, do you want to cross-examine the witness now? That's an adversarial position. She was acting as a city attorney, cross-examining the witness. In their own words. No way around it. So there's clearly a conflict, and she should not be allowed to be the city liaison, the community liaison, and you can't expect anyone here to trust her and believe or have any confidence that we're going to get treated fairly, and the process has been proven not to be fair. Also, to further prove conflicts of interest, when we would meet at her office, as we had numerous meetings at her office, when I was trying to for the year and a half that I was trying to get a hearing even scheduled, she would
constantly cancel the meetings, and I've already expressed that before. But what I would also like to express is, when we would have these meetings, we would sometimes sit in our office for 30 to 40 minutes. We're not discussing for 30 and 40 minutes what day is best to schedule a hearing. No, she's asking me questions about my lawsuit. She's telling me that Jennifer Pasanante, which is the attorney that's defending the city now against my lawsuit, she would tell me that that attorney is emailing her, telling her about the case. And then she would ask me questions about the case. You can't ask me questions about the case, communicate with the other attorney that's an adversary against me, but tell me you're not an adversary also. She's clearly acting as a city attorney while pretending to be a community liaison, questioning me, trying to get information out of me, and I have the proof to support what I'm saying. So if anybody doubts what I'm saying, I can bring you the proof and demonstrate to everyone here that she would ask me lengthy questions about the lawsuit, including questions about a motion to challenge lack of jurisdiction, a motion to get the case dismissed. She went to lengthy discussions with me about the lawsuit. Now, if she's acting as a community liaison, why aren't we talking about scheduling the hearing, and why did it take so long, almost 2 years, to get a hearing? But yet, it's because she's too busy acting as the city attorney and trying to sabotage my case. The hearing officer made decisions based on facts, not in evidence, which is improper and unfair. And as an ex-judge, he knows very well that a hearing officer is not supposed to make his decision, his or her decision, based on facts, not in evidence. They can only make their decision based on the facts that are in evidence. The hearing officer raised the legal standard from only a preponderance of evidence standard, which is a pretty easy burden to meet. That's only really technically 51%. I have to prove that what I'm saying is 51% more likely to have happened than not. That's an easy standard to meet, especially when I'm presenting audio dispatch records and trial transcripts where the officer's testimony is in conflict with the audio dispatch records. Yet, he raised the standard in order to show favoritism to the officers and rule in favor of the officers and deny me getting the recommendation to reopen the internal affairs investigation. And basically his decision was very illogical. Yet the rules, the Attorney General guidelines for internal affairs states that they're supposed to review the evidence and make a decision based on logical conclusions. His decisions were not logical. To further go into the illogical conclusions, the hearing officer said he found it somewhat troubling that the initial arrest report with Officer Gregas, Officer Brant J. Gregas, and Officer Daniel Maison. Initially, when I went to trial, they had an arrest report against me. That arrest report was introduced into evidence and stamped exhibit whatever, A, B, whatever it was. This very stamp is in the section that says narrative. Now we know it is common policy and procedure of police officers that when they arrest someone, they do a narrative. They're supposed to do a narrative on what took place during the arrest. The narrative section is completely blank. The only thing there is that stamp from the court saying exhibit. I introduced that as evidence proving they were lying, because if I had done all the things they said, surely they would have typed it up in a narrative. They didn't type anything because I never did anything wrong. Now, I knew that these officers are corrupt, so a year and a half later, I decided to type up a common law request for another police report for that situation. Figuring that they would probably, now because I have the lawsuit in effect, I figured they probably would create one. Just as I anticipated, I get back another police report, and now all of a sudden there's a typed up narrative that basically repeats what they said at trial. The hearing officer himself says that was troubling to him. to see one arrest report with no narrative and another arrest report with a narrative. Especially when I had it marked, stamped in evidence, so there's no way they can deny that it's not the original, truthful arrest report. He further says that he suggests further inquiry be made into preparation of the report. Now, since he denied me a recommendation to have Internal Affairs reopen the investigation, my logical question is, who's supposed to make further inquiry? He says it's troubling about the reports, the two conflicting reports. And he says further inquiry should be made into the preparation of the report. But he denied my recommendation for Internal Affairs to reopen. So if Internal Affairs is the people that's supposed to investigate crooked-looking things, possible crimes, because that's called tampering with government records, that's a felony. So therefore, if Internal Affairs is not going to investigate it, who is he suggesting make further inquiry? His decisions are completely contradictory and illogical, make no sense whatsoever. He goes on to say, dealing with the second incident I had with Officer Brad Burdell and Rodney Chang, that they claimed that I was impeding the flow of traffic when we're in a big giant parking lot at 1 in the morning and there's no traffic back there, it's just me. And then they pull back. They say I'm impeding the flow of traffic, and that was their probable cause for stopping me before they call for backup and 10 officers show up and they snatch me and my friend out of the car and illegally search for 32, 33 minutes. He sees the proof and knows that I'm telling the truth, so what does he say in order to show favoritism to the officers again? Theoretically, I was blocking traffic. Now, he's an ex-judge again, so I'm demonstrating the corruption that's going on. He's an ex-judge. He says, theoretically, I was impeding the flow of traffic. How do you theoretically, once again, I have a logical question. How do you theoretically block traffic? What is this? Some imaginary blocking of traffic going on? Theoretically, in an imaginary way I'm blocking traffic? But we're dealing with an ex-judge, so he knows better. So this is clearly corruption. He's biased and prejudiced in favor of the officers. Because statutes are literal, not theoretical. And as an ex-judge, hearing officer knows full well that the impeding statute falls under the literal or plain meaning rule, which dictates that statutes are read word for word and interpreted in ordinary language meaning, ordinary based common sense meanings, because theorizing is equivalent to making law. So these officers would be making up the law, as my queen said earlier. They make up the law as they go along, and he's giving them permission and justifying them making up laws. In theory, I was blocking traffic, so I'm not really blocking traffic, but in theory, they can charge me with it because they can make up whatever laws they want on the spot. They're not the Congress. They have no power to legislate. They can't make laws. They only are authorized to follow the statutes that's on the book, and they have to follow them the way they are written and read. They can't make they're not licensed to practice law. Every time I cross-examined them at trial, the municipal prosecutor constantly yelled out objection beyond the scope. He's asking the police questions beyond their scope. And the magistrate would sustain that objection and state that, Mr. Shabazz, you can't ask them those type of questions. They're not lawyers. They don't know the answers to the questions you're asking, and they're not required to know because they're not lawyers. You're asking questions only lawyers should know.
Mr. Shabazz, to be fair to everybody else, 3 more minutes.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I would just like to also state, I'm not a lawyer, but I knew the answers to the question. So, once again, illogical. The hearing officer accepted as fact that Officer Chang saw my friend Mr. L move his hand behind his back. My logical question is, how did he determine this to be a fact when Officer Chang never testified or made any statement on the record about the facts? Only Officer Brad Bedell testified that Chang allegedly said this, but that's hearsay. And hearsay from a disgraced cop who was forced to resign and found guilty of 3 departmental violations. And even the hearing officer states in his report that Bedell's testimony in my trial was troubling. He was an evasive witness, and many answers from Bedell were in conflict with dispatch records. This is what the hearing officer said in his own report. So the officer has no credibility, and since Officer Bedell's testimony is the only testimony in the record, how does he find that my friend was hiding some bottle of pills behind his back? And how does he find, he goes on to say that the search against me was a legal search. He said the officers had the right to search. Yet Brad Bedell's the only one who testified. Again, Chang never testified. And Brad Bedell said no search ever took place, that they never searched him. So once again, how is the hearing officer deciding that if there was a legal search when the officer testified no search ever took place? Where's he getting this information from? He mischaracterized the situation and made it sound like my friend had some illicit drugs. My friend had a bottle with 5 high blood pressure pills in it. Pills that you can look up online and will tell you they're Mylan. It says they're for diabetes and high blood pressure. He explained to the officers the pills were from his girlfriend or his children's mother, and they were together earlier, and she put it in his black carry bag. He had a private black carry bag. I mean, they committed a legal search anyway. He never had no pills in his hand behind his back. They opened up his bag, dumped it out when they illegally searched, and snatched us out the car. But either way, why would my friend need to try to hide blood pressure pills? So once again, these are illogical conclusions that this hearing officer is making. The whole process is flawed because everyone involved in IA investigations and reviews deliberately become scarecrows from the Wizard of Oz, where they conveniently lose the capacity to follow all evidence to its most logical conclusions and start singing the scarecrow's famous song, "If I Only Had a Brain." That's what they do. They lose their common sense. They lose their brains when it's time to make logical decisions about crooked police officers. And then we're the ones left to suffer. It's not right. With all these flaws, there also needs to be an appeal process to be able to challenge the hearing officer's illogical conclusion. That's what you need to set up. The council has the power to do this, and I am respectfully requesting that you set up an appeal process so that when people like me come and can show you how illogical the conclusions are, there should be something that we can do about this. You should be able to take remedial action to remedy this situation. Also, I was advised that Officer Brant J. Grigas, who committed these serious misconduct acts against me, as well against my comrade Tim McDougal, where he violated his rights and illegally searched him and then planted marijuana on him, and they ultimately dismissed the charges. He had 2 eyewitnesses that were ready to testify for him. Internal Affairs didn't even interview his witnesses. Those are clear violations. They say they conducted a proper investigation. If you don't interview 2 eyewitnesses, how are you conducting a proper investigation? Yet, I know he's going, because I'm going to continue to encourage him, to also pursue this sham. If not only just to prove further that it is a sham, because I'm sure he's going to get the same results I got. The hearing officers are going to rule against him and in favor of the officers, and he's not going to get any justice. But from my understanding, Brant J. Grigas has been promoted to a detective. So he gets complaints, serious complaints, evidence to support the complaints, but everyone covers for him and then promotes him. Okay, I'll just end with this. Since he was promoted, what message do you think that sends to the people? The message that is sent to the people is that the whole administration is corrupt, and we cannot get justice from a crooked and corrupt administration. And that causes one thing: people to feel desperate and hopeless. And when people feel desperate and hopeless and feel like they can't get justice from the people that are supposed to ensure that they get justice, people will feel they only have one last resort. And they will take justice into their own hands. At this point, if the city would have done what they were supposed to do and disciplined Officer Brad Bedell and all the other officers I named, Brother Barry DeLoach would still be alive. So as far as I'm concerned, the city has blood on their hands, because if they would have... Barry DeLoach was shot 6 months after I filed my complaint, after I was violated. So I just want to make that clear. You need to think about what you're getting ready to do as a council. He was shot 6 months later. If they would have done the right thing and Internal Affairs would have disciplined him, he would have been deterred from doing what he did to Barry DeLoach. But since they basically showed tacit approval of his misconduct, he went on to now shoot a man in cold blood and then cover it up. So the city has blood on its hands, and if the city does not heed my warning, I'm warning you that you have officers now, and all of these officers are liabilities, because with the complaints you have against them, yet you still allow them to stay on the force, then that means anybody they violate from here on, how are you going to be able to justify that?
Thank you, Mr. Shines. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. I'll try to be quick with respect to the new rules. My name is Charles Craddock.
I wasn't following.
The old rules. Well, maybe you could change them. That would be nice. I want to bring up the situation that was just talked about. That is something that's very concerning to me. It shows that there's not a working criminal justice system and that people can get away with these types of lying. First and foremost, who's in charge of prosecuting perjury at the municipal court? If someone is found to have been lying there, who's in charge of bringing charges against them?
Against somebody in the municipal court?
Somebody who's perjured themselves, somebody who's lied on the stand in municipal court.
It's got to be a complainant.
So there has to be a complainant.
Who should file the complaint?
The person who knew that perjury was committed.
Okay, so I'd like to file a complaint. Who do I go to with the complaint?
Where does this person?
Court clerk.
Court clerk, at the municipal court.
If that's where you're going to file it.
Is that the right place to file it?
I'm not going to practice law for you, Mr.
Well, let's try to.
I'm a citizen asking for help here.
Let's try so we could, let's move on, do you have the answer, Mr. Hamilton? So is it municipal, in the clerks of the municipal court?
That's certainly a place.
Okay, so.
All right.
Go ahead, Mr. Farrell.
I'll seek an attorney's advice on that. Regarding Mr. Burdell, the question I asked before about him, why was it announced he was leaving the department many months before he actually left? What was the holdup?
I did not follow up on that. I will do it for the next meeting.
Okay, and if possible, if you can get the answer to me sooner, you know where to find me, and then we don't have to bring it up here. Regarding the fresh grocer, I think it's very concerning. I know some people here might have been involved in the decision to bring that company here to New Brunswick, and having worked for them, I can say that they're a company who does not have a good reputation, certainly not for treating their workers well, and I've brought up some issues about that here, but I want to know, first of all, how they were allowed to fall so far behind in the rent. I read in a newspaper that they only paid 2 or 3 months rent. And then the rent was just allowed to accumulate with no...
I would prefer those questions, you will go to the New Brunswick Parking Authority board meetings and get the answers to those questions. They are the one in charge of that.
Okay, I just think it's...
Or Mr. Mishkaren.
It's not fair to people in New Brunswick who, if they don't pay their rent, they get,
Again,
they get the boot from the landlord. But the landlord here is a public entity, the parking authority, and they're allowing this company that's cut and run on communities before, they're allowing them to rack up a huge debt. And that concerns me as someone who wants the city taxes to not have to go up, if we can help it.
Absolutely. You could just, the New Brunswick Parking Authority.
Okay. Is the council considering removing the red light camera now that it's been shown that it's actually increasing the number of accidents at Easton and Park?
We have not talked about it any further. I know that it was an only 1 year project, if I recall correctly, so I don't know if you're going to have it.
Well, it's been renewed a number of times. It is likely to come
Yeah, but it's
back.
a 1 year, every year will renew, so I don't know, are we renewing it?
I don't remember the terms of the renewals, but the light is functioning right now. It is likely to come out of service sometime this year. The county is going to rebuild the intersection of Easton Avenue and Park Boulevard, which will cause the camera to come down, at least during the construction phase. Whether the contract expires in the meantime, I'm not clear of the dates at the moment, but it is likely to be put out of service sometime this year when the county takes on that project.
Separate apart from the contract, the news story I read said the state was not going to allow it to be reinstalled, having nothing to do with it operating properly, improperly, or properly. But they just weren't going to do that.
Thank you.
Well, I would, I mean, if it's not making the intersection safer, we should remove it immediately, and I would urge the council to do that. I will skip some questions because some people aren't here to answer them. But I do want to ask the council whether you stand by the press release that was issued today by the city government. You say that you're not allowed to talk about litigation that's happening at the city level, but Mr. Marquetta, who is paid with taxpayer dollars, issued a rather misleading press release today to all the media outlets and to the public. And I want to ask the council if you stand by that, and you think that was appropriate for him to do that, or for the mayor's office to do that.
I am not making any comment on that. Anybody wishes to comment? Council would like to make a comment related to that? So at this point, none of us have a comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I would just like to thank Mr. Marquetta for the free press. This is our newspaper, and we're very proud of it. It's a newspaper, and I want to ask, speaking of, you talk about personal attacks. This was a personal attack on me.
We have let me ask the council, because you passed the 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Council.
A little benevolent.
We'll go net back in the line.
What was that?
I'm gonna go back in the line.
The council, there
Oh.
has been to go back into line of complaint.
Fair enough, I'll be back.
Thank you.
Mel Pittman, 291 Seymour Street, New Brunswick, New Jersey. First up, I want to say, the rules that you implemented, just like Charlie Crowder just did, are you allowed to speak for 5 minutes, go back to the line, and come and speak for another 5 minutes?
This is if you're talking about us, me as a president of the council and the council business, it doesn't have anything to do with the public portion part of the meeting. Just two different issues. So the public portion of the meeting, that's where the rule states that it's 5 minutes.
Excuse me?
As I said, the public portion of the meeting, the regulation says that it's 5 minutes.
Okay.
Statement is 5 minutes. It has nothing to do with the business of the council, what we discuss here when we're talking about resolutions and when we're talking about ordinances in the city.
That's
Or
good.
the ordinance that I do.
I understand, on a lot of occasions, one of your colleagues slip you papers and you make comments, but you need to listen to what I said. I said, if someone comes up to the mic and speaks for 5 minutes and you say that they're done, are they allowed to come back after other people?
Come back, they could come back.
Yeah, okay, you needed to stress that we had the impression that it's 5 minutes and we just go home, so we can come back after.
And that's one of the reasons that I was like, putting time limits until I saw the regulations, because it doesn't, to me, it doesn't preclude somebody to coming back. Again, the 5 minutes to allow everybody, and that's the way the regulations have been put in the municipal code.
No, I just wanted the public to know, because I was aware that you can come back, and I just wanted them to be aware too. Also, you made a statement about people getting involved more in community and electing to take the initiative to join programs. But you make that statement not knowing what these people do when they leave here. You just made an assumption that you're not even aware of. You don't know what people do outside of this forum. There's a lot of things. Even when dealing with Ms. Gading, you said, I said that she shouldn't be allowed to get compensated for her job. Your words to me were, Mel Pittman, you're an activist. You should do her job. And my thing is, why don't I get paid? You said you're considered an activist. I don't agree with that. I think you defend corruption to an extent. You support corruption to an extent. And when you come here, I think you can't take the heat. You are elected officials. You took an oath to protect the public and put the public's interest first and foremost. But you give us a set of rules so we could come in here robotic to your leisure. You're making $187 an hour to sit in those seats. And you force us to subject our comments to listen, you make $187 an hour. And if
we are just making, he has time we still have time, so the same rules apply today applies to us. So let's continue to have
And I think that was,
disagree.
and I think that was very disrespectful, like you said, you know, I want to
That's
know,
what I said.
I want to know the punishment for them when they get disrespected.
And that's what I said, that the same rules that apply to the public apply to us. I don't know if you heard me when I said that.
No, I didn't, thank you. But you make $187 an hour to sit in those seats. If you leave here within an hour and a half, that $187 goes up. So if you leave here within 2 hours, your salary is $187 per hour to sit in those seats. And 9 times out of 10, you're here no more than 2 hours. I have a lot of concern. I have a lot of issues. You know, I'll deal with, you know, one of the situations I have with Ms. Gady. If it seems like, you know, people come here and express their concern and their situation, and nothing's ever accomplished. And honestly, I came here to defend her, you know, because she was in a situation earlier that I didn't approve of. But I spoke to Mr. Laga, and he said that he would have a decision on reprimand. I'll give a brief override of what the situation happened. I know you guys are aware of, I know if the community is aware of, but Ms. Gaten was called a nigger a week ago. Now, honestly, I think that she should be the last one to be disrespected because of the way she go up the bat for you guys. She's on the forefront for you guys to retain us. So I honestly think that she should be the last person to be disrespected. You know, I found it, and I critique her, and I'm hard on her. But when you disrespect a black female, my mother is a black female, was a black female. My wife is right there. She said she's a black female. Mr. Shabazz Queen's guy, she's a black female. You disrespected every entire black female that I set my eyes on. And I don't appreciate it. And what's more upsetting is, and I told you I was going to, but you guys didn't come up with a decision and you put the 5-minute rule on me, so I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to go back on my word. I'm going to go back on my word because I don't appreciate the rules and regulations that you put forth. She was called a nigger with 4 people in the restaurant. One happened to be a black young man that just started working here. That just started working for the city. He just got hired. And he had to sit in a restaurant with a person referring to a lady with a collegiate background and successful female. That person called that young lady, Ronnie Belafonte, called her a nigger. This young man is trying to do the right thing. He was put in a horrible situation. He don't even have his 90 days in. But he had to make a decision whether I risk my job or do I fight for what's right. And he elected to be quiet. Should nobody be put under that condition? And what's furthermore upset is his supervisor was at the table, who's a white female, who has 4 kids by a black man, and elected not to say anything. And then get back to work and downplay the situation. Now let's take this young man for instance, right? Say for instance, he's distraught inside, and he leaves his job. And he leaves his job and hangs out. He could possibly get shot in the head. I had a family member recently got shot in the head. He killed. And what's the solution? When we get shot, you hire more police officers. When someone gets shot again, you hire more police officers. Someone gets shot again, you hire more police officers. But the common denominator is people are still being shot. Now, if Captain Miller can enlighten you on 9 times out of 10, when a person investigates a homicide, the person that's killed and the person that gets arrested for the homicide, 9 times out of 10, those 2 people are unemployed. Those 2 people aren't working.
Mr. Piedman, allow me for a second because the time is up, so I could ask the council talk about the extension of the extra time. Please. So, we are,
The thing is, most of the time, these black men are unemployed. And you override that. You spend money on officers who can't fix the problem, but you won't give the money to the people who are inflicted by the pain. I had to sit there and step over my cousin's clothes with a puddle of blood. I'm not making this a race issue, but to sit there and watch about 15 detectives conduct an investigation on his homicide with smirks on their face, with no compassion whatsoever. This thing looked like it, and then he had another 12. It was a show, it's about 30 officers, just picking up little shells and doing whatever. And the one black officer that was on the scene was Henry Davis. Henry Davis grew up with us. Henry Davis knew everyone in that area. He grew up on Saddam Street. The shooting happened on Seaman Street.
to see Henry Davis sitting there like he's a crossing guard, while the other white officers are in huddles and putting stories together and doing investigative work, you got the one person in the community, the one black person that people may have said something to, looking back and forth, making sure nobody crosses the yellow line. That's a problem to me. That's a problem. That's a race issue, because I don't think that the passion, if you had majority of blacks dealing with the city, blacks and Latinos dealing with blacks and Latinos getting shot, I think the epidemic would stop. But when blacks and Latinos get killed, you hire more white officers for the problem, for the issue. That to me is insane. And insanity is when you continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. Well, the result didn't change. They're still getting killed. And you're still paying these officers a lengthy salary to smirk on their face while they're picking dead bodies up. It don't work. Your plan do not work. And you say, and I don't get disrespectful because a lot of your comments be drawn to me. And it's cool. But I don't get disrespectful, I have passion. It's the difference between passion and disrespect. Whether you agree with it or not, you're going to get what the public wants to hear. I don't care what stipulations you put on the community, what rules you tell us. You put more rules on people sitting in these aisles than you do at people sitting at those tables. That's why we continue to be in these situations. Because this person was shot, my cousin was shot 2 times within 14 months. What did the city do as far as pro-action to make sure no one else was put in that predicament again? But aside from hiring police officers. What did the city do when my cousin was shot twice to stop that from happening outside of hiring police officers? What did the city do when my cousin got shot 2 times in 14 months outside of hiring extra police officers? I take that as a nothing, and you should be held accountable. So not only do you have Barry DeLoach's blood on your hand, you have every black and Latino youth that's ever been killed within the last decade's blood on your hands.
You allow me for a second, if you could give Mr. Lackman.
I wanted to respond to the Ronnie Belafonte, Charlie Gayden issue that Mr. Pittman raised. When I met with him yesterday, I told him that disciplinary action was being considered and that I would do my best to report something tonight. And the conduct that Mr. Belafonte is alleged to have participated in is hurtful and it's ignorant and it's not tolerated by this administration. And he was suspended without pay today, and should the charges that we have put forward against him, should they be upheld, he's facing termination. So I wanted to at least say that before the next speaker.
Thank you.
How you doing? Timothy McDougal. I'm from Somerset, but I had issues dealing with New Brunswick. I just wanted to first state that I remember the last time I came to the council meeting, I spoke about how I just recently lost my brother. You showed some concern and you expressed a few words to me, and I appreciate that. I didn't think about it until I left, but I wanted to say that. But backward to what I came for, I was expecting Charlie Gayden to be here, but I guess she's not. I remember when I first came, I told you about how I had officers. I was dealing with 2 officers who illegally did me wrong, and how I wanted to skip the internal affairs process because I kind of figured what was going to happen with that process. But Charlie said I couldn't skip that process, so I went along and I went forward with it, and I presented my evidence to internal affairs, and just like I thought, internal affairs swept it under the rug. And I did a little research and I found out that they actually violated the Attorney General guidelines for internal affairs, because when I first filed my complaint, I stated that I had two eyewitnesses, and under the guidelines it states that they're supposed to interview all witnesses, but my witnesses were never interviewed. But the officers that I filed the complaints against were exonerated. So I feel as though that I didn't get a fair and proper investigation, and now we're at this point where, I guess the hearing, I'm supposed to go forward with the hearing and everything like that.
Madam, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you file, because that was my question, I know that I heard that you are doing the process with Ms. Fagan, the complaint you filed with the process?
Yes.
And then I heard that you stopped it for, at the last meeting, I heard that you stopped. Are you back at it? And I just wanted to be clear that you started it again.
Yeah, I took a little recess, because I wanted to handle my brother's death. But
Okay, so you started, because I had to understand that you have to, after that you have put the complaint, that you started the process, and then I was told that you stopped again. So I
Yeah.
just want to be clear that to make sure that I know that you started the process.
Yeah, I started
Okay.
I never stopped. I mean,
No, no, but
I just haven't been here.
Yes,
I've been
yes.
doing my research, and I've
Okay.
been doing what I gotta do behind
So
the
the
scenes.
process is the process, although it's done, the process is in the process.
Yeah, I mean, but,
Okay.
you know,
I just want to make sure.
hearing about the process
Mhm.
and knowing that the officers that were involved in my case were also involved in Mr. Shabazz's case, I took the time out to investigate the process, and when he had his hearing, I actually took off of work and I went to his hearing and I watched the entire hearing. We were there for a while, and he presented some pretty strong evidence proving that the officers lied, as plain as can see, once I
Yeah,
see
just that I
evidence.
wanted to make sure that you started the process with Ms. Gagan again.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, I started the process, but I mean, I believe, and that's why I'm here, that the process doesn't work. And it's obvious because he's going through the same situation, well, he went through the same situation that I went through, and I don't want to go through that. Because I already know what's going to happen, just like how I know what was going to happen with internal affairs. So it's like, you want me to go through this process, but the process already proved through him it doesn't work. It's not going to work. And being as though my situation happened over 5 years ago, and I had 2 eyewitnesses, and when I first filed the complaint, and when I first got arrested, I was going to court, and I wasn't taking no plea bargain. My money was seized, and I was charged with distribution of marijuana, because I was planted, I had weed planted on me, and I wasn't taking no plea bargain, I was going to trial, and one of my eyewitnesses were constantly coming to court. She came to court on 3 separate occasions, but nobody never showed up. So eventually the charges were dropped against me. I got all my money back and all the charges were dropped. And now 5 years later, and this is still going on, of course I want to go through the process, so I tried to contact the 2 eyewitnesses, since it was so long ago and I haven't really spoken to them like that, and I asked them, do you remember what happened that night? And they both told me, yeah, they remember exactly. They didn't forget because they seen the whole thing. So I said, well, I got this situation going on in Brunswick. Would you be willing to be a witness again? They're not my family. I don't really see them like that. And they said, yes, they are willing to be witnesses again for my case. And I even went out and I got them to write up some witness affidavits. And I even got those notarized. I got both of them. So 5 years later, after that situation happened with those police officers, I tracked those witnesses down again, and they're still willing to come forward and state what they've seen that night. And that's going to prove my case. Now, I'm presenting all this evidence to the council, and hopefully soon I want to be able to present it at the hearing. But I kind of figured what's already going to happen. So I'm letting you know what's going to happen right now, but since I got to go through the process, I'm ready now. Now I want to set up the hearing. Now I want to go forward with it. I got all my evidence, and I got a copy of it if you need it. But I'm letting you know right now that those officers, one way or another, those officers are going to be exonerated. So what's the sense of this process? And that's what gets me aggravated. It's not you. I know it's not you, but who I got to deal with?
What I will tell you, Mr. Manchugo, I think that we all learned with Mr. Shabazz. The minute that you see that something is not going the way it's supposed to be going, the implementation of the process of the protocol dealing with these cases, please do come back. Because I think we already learned from Mr. Shabazz, and I expect nothing but the complete process to be taking place the way it should be. I'm not talking about the decision, I'm not talking about the case itself, it's just the process. So please, if you know that there's something that is there that is wrong, please come back. because we already went through it and it should be corrected already, and we shouldn't have the same issues that he had.
Yeah, I mean,
But I thank you for, at least for completing the process. Again, there's nothing that we can do with the decision. That's something independent from us. The council doesn't have to do anything with that, but the protocol implementation is something that is important to me.
I mean, but being as though he went through the whole process and he proved that it doesn't work,
And his
can that be changed for me? I mean, so I can
I cannot
do
answer
something
you,
different. 'Cause
but
I don't
I
want to
can-
present everything and then go through the same thing. He's going through the same frustration, the same pain. You know, it's crazy because it's the same officers. So it's like, you know, I'm kind of hesitant on going through the process because I already know it doesn't work. And I sat there myself. I said, you know what, I'm going to that hearing and I'm going to hear everything with an open mind, and I'm going to hear all the evidence and make my own determination. And he proved without a reasonable doubt that those officers lied. But one way or another, that magistrate twisted it to make it that the officers were exonerated. So I mean, like, why would I go through the whole process if I already know what's going to happen? You know, and
It is your prerogative. I would encourage you to do it, but thank you. Mr.
okay, well now I'm here and I want the process. Well, I want to set up the hearing. So I remember Mr. Hamilton had sent me a letter before.
Just for a second, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You passed the 5 minutes, so I want to make sure that we go through the same process, whether we extend the time or we ask Mr. McDougal to come back. So just go ahead
Or I want to do it while you're going. Can I, we can stop this. I just want to, we have our justice system, we all know. It's either, you know what I'm saying, it's imperfect. You know, we have an imperfect justice system in the United States. That's why justice is on scales. I'm encouraging you, just go ahead through the process, right? Even if we know, I mean, we've seen trials in the United States on a higher level, we knew the outcome. Most recently, you know, everybody followed Trayvon Martin trial. We said, we knew this guy's probably going to get off with it. But if you feel like you don't have justice within that system, supersede that system. Hypothetically, because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not claiming to be a lawyer, go forth and go into another system. You know what I'm saying? Go forth and seek justice. If you don't feel like you had justice at that point, I'm not saying, you know, we'll tell you what to do, but there are other avenues where you can seek justice out. Because we always say, you know what I'm saying, I didn't get justice in this point, where if you have two people who are adversarial when they come into court, somebody's going to leave there feeling like they didn't get justice done. You know what I'm saying? So if you feel like you go through the process, go through the process. Yes, it gets frustrating. Yes, it may be imperfect. But then if you feel like you still have not been satisfied, then supersede that and go forward. You know, you know, that's what we have right now because we're not, you know, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I see what you're saying, I mean, but why should I have to do that? Why should I have to go through all that? It's so easy for that cop to go get up marijuana and plant it on me and lock me up. But, you know, I can't file a complaint and get charges brought against him that much easier. I mean, because he has a gun in his badge, who makes him better than me? We both human, you know, and the crazy thing about it, like, what message are you sending to the community? Because this same crooked officer that planted marijuana on me is the same crooked detective that's handling this murder case, Brad Gregus. So how can people within the community trust in the detective that's running around planting drugs on people? You know, I read that in the paper. I said, wow, Gregus is handling Stanker. That's my boy. I grew up with him. I knew him before he died. You know, he's handling his murder case. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about him, and I know that for a fact because he didn't care about me. He didn't care to plant weed on me, and that's why I keep coming here. You know, so it's like you tell me to go through another, but why should I have to do that? I mean, really, why should I have to do all
I
this?
said go through the first process.
I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready for war. You know what I'm saying? In more ways than one. You know, but you know, I want to go through the process and see how it works. But like I'm telling the council now, I expect to be back soon because I expect this process not to work. And it's like I don't mean to come here all the time and express my concern, but I mean, what else can I do?
Thank you, Mr. McDougal.
All right, so is somebody gonna contact me because I don't see Charlie here, Mr. Hamilton, maybe.
I made a note to talk to Ms. Gay in the morning, tell her this now, Mr. McDougal definitely wants to go forward.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good evening once again. Charles Cradville, 6th Ward, New Brunswick. I want to say it's an honor to be the first person to be denied the extra minutes, and I'm happy to wait my turn. I do want to ask one more question about the Fresh Grocer. Is it true that taxpayer dollars are going to pay a New Brunswick Parking Authority security vehicle to sit 24 hours a day at the loading dock to make sure that the company doesn't steal things out of the store?
I have no information, I have no information on that.
Can we look into that? Because that's probably costing a good amount of money.
Look into that, and you can look with the parking authority also, it's to both of us the same.
Okay,
To see what
great,
we
because I just don't want to see the money wasted, and I don't think that, if we've gotten in,
Okay.
The Fresh Grocer's gonna steal from their own store?
they have other stores, and this one doesn't look like it's.
So they're gonna steal their produce? whatever.
And some of the stuff was financed by,
Not beyond their normal possibility.
So I will find out.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to know. Ever since that came out, they've been there.
Madam President, we have a difference between the Fresh Grocer and the ShopRite company that's taken over.
No. What they did is not ShopRite that take over. What they did is an agreement. It's a cooperative agreement that
It's two separate
ShopRite. What they did is not that ShopRite took over. It's an agreement that the Fresh Grocer has the ability to buy from ShopRite. Because I was asking that question. So it's just that they're able to buy the products and put the products in the supermarket. But the Fresh Grocer is not ShopRite.
But technically,
Who's renting, who's making the money?
Fresh
Who's
Grocer.
supposed to pay Fresh Grocer?
Fresh Grocer.
but technically, somebody that shops there, it's ShopRite. You know, I mean, without the name, besides any other name than ShopRite. And I was upset personally because they never told us when they cut. I didn't know they cut the hours. You know, and I know people that work there. We didn't know they cut the hours. There were just things. Right now, there's businesses all over the place are closing up right now, and it's the way that you go about it to keep everybody informed, keep the community informed, and everything like that. Just like they arbitrarily made the decision to start using Wakeford, and I've talked to people, and I said, if I want to go to ShopRite, I'll go to the ShopRite I go to. But when the majority of their products are ShopRite, then it's ShopRite by any other name.
Absolutely. Even though it's a cooperative agreement, but you're absolutely right. It's not the.
And I'm just concerned about the parking authority, and I know that it was said at the grand opening that, they had the pieces together. Robert Wood was ready to go with their part of the building, but they did not have an operator when they started, and as a result, we ended up with a subpar operator, and we should have waited till we found a company that was going to be the right company for our town. And so I'm just concerned that it seems like the parking authority and Robert Wood Johnson kind of get whatever they want, and then we ask questions later, and we end up in a situation like this. Moving on, I do want to ask just a couple questions about this statement from the city. The city government issued a statement today saying that I am suing the police department. Is that accurate?
We are not discussing the press release, Mr. Farrell. We told you that before.
Okay, I see Mr. Marqueta has left, so he's not here to defend it, but, so I guess no one's here to defend it, no one will defend it.
We are not, if there's any inaccuracies or anything that
Yes.
have a challenge with that press release, you know what to do, Mr. Marqueta, or you could just put it in the newspaper, electronically.
Madam President, can we just ask, are you suing?
I have filed a lawsuit against the city clerk.
Okay.
And the city issued a statement today completely not telling the truth, saying that I'm suing the police department. In the headline, they made that mistake. So I'm, for the record, correcting that. I'd also like to correct the ludicrous assertion that my lawsuit has the potential to jeopardize the security of the city's residents. Is that something that anyone here believes?
Again, we already told you that we are not commenting on the press release. Any challenges with the press release, you could come back to the next meeting, or you could get in contact with Mr. Machado, or you could write something in your electronic version of the newspaper. Because you know that in the past, Mr. Prado, when we really think about it, we had one also, because we have seen some things in your, that some of you writer have put a headline or something that is incorrect, inaccurate, and we had brought it to your attention, because that's not the best way to bring forth the correct information and the news to the community. So So I don't know if it's something that has to do, I don't know if it has something to do with journalism, just to get their attention, because you have done it, so I don't know, so I'm not commenting on that, because there's something, two different things, in the sense of the, but again, I don't want to make any comments, you have the right to express your opinion on it, and we will listen, but we are not making any comment at this time.
Well, then
Thank you.
then the final point that I want to make, and the final, I guess, untruth that I want to correct, is the way that our newspaper was characterized. It was called My Political Blog, which I've never seen a blog that's 24 pages in color before. And we're very proud of the work we do at New Brunswick today. We want to be the newspaper for all of New Brunswick. We have a phenomenal bilingual monthly print edition, and we also have a very popular online newspaper. That's the proper term for it. So I don't appreciate Mr. Marquetta's slander, essentially the things that were untrue, that he took it upon himself, and probably at the direction of the mayor, to put out there. I would ask that he correct the record, and while I'm on the topic, I do have one more thing. The record needs to be corrected, that at this meeting, this body's meeting, the most recent meeting, Captain Miller incorrectly said that Rutgers University has emailed all their students to ask for help in the investigation of the young man who was killed. That is incorrect, and I would like Captain Miller to clarify what the truth is here.
Captain Miller, did you hear Mr. Carnival in the sense that Rutgers, that allegedly mentioned that Rutgers notified the students by email about the death of the student?
I'm unsure if I said all, and all is a very large word, that could be wrong. We disseminated information to both universities, and I was assumed that it was put out. But if it wasn't, then I'm sorry.
Thank you for that. And it's a reasonable assumption to make, and I'm very upset with my alma mater that they didn't do that. But I do want to correct the record. I'm not suing the police department. There's no danger that this will jeopardize the security of the city's residents, and we're a newspaper and we're very proud of it. Thank you very much.
Eugene Thurman. My matter is like a personal matter, but they have something to
Mr.
do.
Kennedy, if I have your address, please, in the microphone, so we
I'm
could
sorry,
hear
I'm
you.
sorry. Yeah, my name is Eugene Thurman.
Yes.
Mine is like a personal matter, but it's a serious matter, and I'm trying my best not to take matters into my own hands. I recently went to court on this matter, and then nothing happened to me. The guy got a pat on the back. But me, mind you, being 62 years old and raised 13 kids in this town, just lucky. Only thing that's, I guess I'm not out there in jail right now. This guy is not, he have not did this in front of one of my kids. If that happened in front of my kids, how he embarrassed me and this and that there, I'm gonna take it in my own hand and do what I gotta do. But I'm trying not to do what's gonna happen. I went to the court clerk in New Brunswick here to try to get a restraining order, which I didn't get. And the first time when I went to court, they told me if he bothers you again, come back to court. So I went back to court to try to get another court date to go back to court because this guy did violate me again. So I'm asking you, can you help me get a restraining order or do something about it before I do something about it? Because I'm not going to fight fair. I'm willing to do, I hate to tell you, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I ain't on the oath, but I'm about to do something that you're going to read about me.
So Mr.
And I don't want to do that.
Mr. Sims, to be clear, you're having a child with another resident, another person?
A resident, yeah. This guy, he keeps bothering me. He accused me of his girlfriend, which he never seen me with her. Now, he's young, and I'm 62. He told my son, say, you been telling me you asking my dad about your and he's 62? You understand? So I give myself a pat on the back. But nix that aside, you about to read about me, and I don't want that to happen.
No, we don't want to read about you.
So I'm telling you, I'm sick of it.
If you would allow me, please, when you're done with the meeting, stay for a little bit, so
Yes,
I
ma'am.
can talk to you and see how can I help you and see maybe to, let's see what we can do. If there is any Because when it comes to restraining orders, it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
You know, it depends on the situation, but I'd be glad to sit down with you and talk to you about it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Eric Straub and I live in the 6th Ward. I am the Director of Advertising for New Brunswick Today, and be very quick, it's a comment, not a question, but I just noticed something, kind of the advice that you were giving to some of the people. There was like an issue where there's a credibility, or the people perceive a credibility gap with the process that they're going through, and the advice that the council has given them is that they should assume that the process works and go through it to the fullest possible extent, even if they have very clear evidence in their eyes that the process is maybe flawed or has been flawed. I'm not saying that you're saying that it is flawed, I'm saying that if the people who have to go through it feel that it's flawed or unfair. So I just want to ask that you take the same approach to the newspaper, and instead of just asserting, and I've seen it happen at city council meetings and Mr. Marquette's press release, which you don't have to speak to, but is another example of it, where there's an attempt to discredit and say that we're not a legitimate newspaper, and I don't think that the council and some of the city departments are treating it that way, and I just want to encourage you that you should assume that we're going to treat you fairly and help the organization to grow and to give comment as much as possible and to embrace us and get the word out, and that if and when you feel that you're treated unfairly, that you can pursue justice or you can make assumptions about political motivations or things like that at that time. And Mr. Egan, do you have an issue with what I'm saying?
Yes, with me?
Well, you just seem like you were.
Of course I do. I mean, you guys sit there and you talk about, you call the administrator, the embattled business administrator. You guys put stuff in your stuff that isn't true. Why is he the embattled business administrator?
I think because
why is Anthony Caputo the embattled police director? What are they embattled with?
Well, I think there's a lot of issues with the police
What?
department. Didn't everyone who came for public comment speak about issues with the police? I mean, there's at least some perceptions.
Let me just, we're talking about a newspaper, we're not here to talk about a newspaper, that's something that's.
I was making a comment,
No,
but it
but
just
I
seemed
thank you,
as-
I'm not talking about newspaper because that's something totally different. So I thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, I appreciate
And at this time, I will entertain a motion to
Motion.
end the meeting.
Second.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Council Vice President Egan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes.
Councilmember Garlotti.
Aye.
Council President Escobar.
Yes.